March 2026 open at 4:12. I'll remind all present that mobile phones must be switched off before the meeting and the meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Windjak Shire Council acknowledges the Ngununggula and Tharawal people as traditional custodians of this land. I pay my respects to the traditional custodians, their ancestors who cared for this country for many thousands of years, and their elders and descendants who continue to care for country. I'd also like to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, including those here today. We have no apologies. Confirmation of minutes. We now move to the minutes, confirming the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of February 2026. I will take these as read. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Duffy. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Do we have any disclosures of interest? Okay, couple. Councillor Smith, what is your interest?
So item 8.1.1, Ngununggula business case for funding. As the council appointed member on the board, I have a significant non-pecuniary interest and I will leave the chamber. Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I declare an interest regarding 8.1.2 multi-purpose indoor sporting facility. I have a non-pecuniary significant interest as my husband is the chair of Southern District Cricket Zone, the governing body of cricket in southern New South Wales. He does not have a formal role with any club or association in the Highlands. However, Highlands Cricket Association is a member of the zone. My husband also coaches the Moss Vale Cricket Club and my son plays for Moss Vale Cricket Club. The report before us tonight refers to Council continuing to work with Highlands Cricket about Lackey Park long-term plans. And the way I intend to manage this conflict, Mr Mayor, is to leave the room. I also have another declaration of interest to make regarding 8.1.4, Illawarra Academy of Sport Funding Agreement. This is a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest as I represent the Mayor at board member meetings at the Illawarra Academy of Sport. Councillors voted upon me taking upon this role, and I am not there in a personal capacity, but rather a representative capacity of yourself, Mr Mayor. New South Wales Cricket has a pathway for cricketers, and accordingly the Illawarra Academy of Sport predominantly supports athletes outside of cricket. So there is no personal interest for myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so, apologies, how are you managing that one?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will be staying in the room as it is a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other conflicts, General Manager?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. And I also disclose I have a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in 8.1.2, as I have a professional acquaintance with a member of the LGPS team, Mr Stephen Head. This interest is not significant as our contact is infrequent and limited to professional and local government industry related settings, and a reasonable person would not perceive this relationship as being close enough to influence my public duty. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more interests? Okay. With that, councillors, we'll go for a mayoral minute. Would anyone like to speak to this minute? It's basically setting out the JOs the Minister wrote to us to ask what JO we want to, joint organisation we want to be a part of. We're currently with the CRJO. I feel we obviously more strongly align with the Illawarra JO, and that's what this minute's expressing. Would anyone like to speak to this? Okay, I'll now put this motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Councillors, I have a procedural motion that we resolve the order of business be changed in order to bring forward the following items by exception and the officer's recommendation for each item be adopted. The items I'd like to deal with by exception are 8.2.9, easement over council land at Edge Street, Mittagong, and 8.3.2, investment report February 2026. Does anyone want to speak to either of these? Okay, I'll seek a seconder for that. Councillor Foley. Okay, I'll now put that motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Okay, our first item, sorry, apologies. Give me 2 seconds, I'll just make sure I cross them out.
Mayor, I'd like to move a procedural motion.
What is your procedural motion?
That we move item 8.1.7.2, which is the grants management policy draft for adoption, forward.
Sorry, which one was that, sorry, Councillor?
8.1.7.2, which is the grants management policy draft for adoption.
Can you show me that one here? 8 point. Incoming grants management policy. Okay, and you're wanting to move that to where, sorry?
To now.
You want to do that first? Okay, so we have a procedural motion to bring that to the front of the business. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Moylan. All those in favour? Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell, those against? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. That is lost. Okay, we move to... No, we do not. I'm sorry. I'm just going to fix my paperwork and then we'll kick off the first item. Okay, 8.1.1, Ngununggula business case for funding. The recommendation is on page 7 of the agenda. Do I have a mover for this, please? Councillor Farrell, a seconder. Councillor Duffy. Councillor Farrell.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
Pause, yes.
I
Just
have,
wait for Councillor Smith to leave. Apologies, everybody.
I have a document to table.
Okay.
It is the letter from Mr Theo Onisferu, dated today, 18th of March 2026.
Okay, thank you.
To Danielle Ligard, and it's on our desk.
We'll table that. Thank you. We were at Councillor Farrell. You have the floor.
Turn that on. Okay, thank you. I'll be fairly brief. I have no particular interest in art galleries. It's never been something high on my list of interests. However, this is not about me. I do understand the interest a lot of people have in such a facility. I know it's not just about art. The gallery provides a range of other interests and benefits to the Highlands community and more broadly across the regions. The proposed funding decision before Council today is vital to assist the gallery in planning for the future. In my opinion, it would be hypocritical to not support the gallery and continue funding sports grounds, tennis courts, swimming pools, walking and cycling tracks, libraries, community halls, children's playgrounds, and the list goes on. When there is a call to abolish the funding for the gallery, I don't see any such proposal to defund the other things Council supports. The gallery comes under notice because the grant is front and centre. The rest are done as routine business of Council. But nevertheless, all are supported by Council and the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Duffy.
I just have a question through you, Mr Mayor, I think to the General Manager. It's always the General Manager, sorry, my procedure. What is the total amount of discretionary funding in our budget?
General Manager.
Number 3, Mr Mayor, to Mr Kuvzornowski.
It's about $16 million.
Okay. Anything did you want to speak to?
Can I reserve my right to speak?
Sure.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor, I'll go Councillor Moylan.
Mr Mayor, I have an amendment to make.
Can I get that amendment, please?
To delete 1 and 2 and replace it with the following. 1, that the matter of funding and the contract for Ngununggula Art Gallery stand deferred, subject to Roman numeral 1, a public meeting to be held with the Wingecarribee community to ascertain the community's opinion and the funding and their suggestions on the funding model, including but not limited to usage charges. And then colon, please. That the Roman numeral 2, that the meeting be facilitated by council at Bowral Memorial Hall with registered speakers and a standing microphone. And then full stop, point 3. Thank you. That the General Manager provide all copies of the audited financial reports for Ngununggula Art Gallery to all councillors. And then 4, please. That the AEC financial consultants report, that the General Manager provide the AEC financial consultants report to councillors and Ngununggula Art Gallery when it is released.
Okay, you happy with that wording?
Yes, in point number 1, so point number 1, to ascertain the community's opinion and their suggestions. No, that's fine.
Okay,
We'll
thank
leave
you.
that.
Do you have a seconder for this? Councillor Russell. Councillor Farrell, do you accept this as amendment? If yes, it'll become the motion. If no, then we'll have to go to debate.
No.
Okay. We have a seconder, so Councillor Merlin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have many concerns about the way we're approaching this decision tonight. But at the outset, I do want to thank Mr. Ben Quilty and for his tireless efforts in establishing our Ngununggula Regional Art Gallery and all the community who have helped him. It is an extraordinary effort. Councillors, tonight we are being asked to make many financial decisions on millions and millions of ratepayers' dollars without knowing how much we have to spend. This is not a matter of the art gallery per se. This is a matter about how we manage our finances and the approach we're taking. We're currently in the middle of a financial review. And in your words, Mr. Mayor, on the podcast, we have a man currently under the bonnet looking at all of our books and coming back to us in a month's time with a report, a professional expert report advising us on how to get our finances back on track. We are making these financial decisions tonight blind. Last meeting, I asked a very direct question of the General Manager whether we're in a financial crisis, and the answer was no. The report of the man currently under the bonnet will come back to us, and that may or not confirm or deny that view. But the point is, we have to wait for him to finish his report. It is a matter of probity. He is spending 150 hours on this report, and we are paying him for it. We cannot be making these decisions prematurely. Now, clearly, what I say in this place doesn't seem to be with the majority support. I understand that, and I'm okay with that. But what I will say, Mr. Mayor, is if I were in your shoes, I would not be asking councillors to make millions and millions of dollars spending decisions outside of the budget process and before we have got the experts' review back. And I would be asking, if I were in your shoes, Mr. Mayor, for that financial advisor who has our finances in his hand to come to this formal meeting and present to us, and for Ngununggula to see the results of that report. I would not be discussing it on a podcast in a dark room, part 1 and part 2, talking about frogs. This is very serious matters, and Ngununggula deserve to have the utmost integrity in these financial decisions. I stand with the community, Mr. Mayor. We need to make sure that we are dealing with our finances with the utmost probity. We are in a cost of living crisis. Inflation is up, interest is up, groceries are up, everything is up, rent is up, mortgage is up. We cannot be making these decisions on the fly and outside of the budget process. Even cafes are closing down because nobody can afford $10 coffees and avocado on toast anymore. I see a lot of probity issues here, councillors. 1, this needs to go on public exhibition. We need community consultation on this very important matter. 2, we don't know how much in the budget we have to spend, and yet we're going headlong into spending decisions. 3, the business cases before us, not the one from the Ngununggula Art Gallery, the one presented to us by council is more of an advocacy piece. We need impartial business documents with 2 sides of the ledger being considered. And it needs to include the audited financial statements from Ngununggula Art Gallery. Nextly, we are considering, it's in all of our documentation, a special rate variation in the not too distant future. I am against such a rate rise because I don't think at this point in time, for what I've seen, that we're doing enough heavy lifting to make savings in our budget. And IPART, the pricing regulator, they agree with me because they knock back special rate variation applications if there is not proof that a council is making serious cost containment decisions. And what we're looking at today
Thank you,
is
Councillor.
simply not
That
one.
is your time. Would anyone like to speak to this? Councillor Russell.
I find the timing of this quite interesting. In the same paper as we have this decision, we actually have our grants policy. We're an incoming council. Our grants policy should inform all of our decision making so we're making equitable, considered decisions. As Councillor Moylan has said, the timing of this in relation to our financial sustainability review, even in the context of what we already know from looking at our budget from the last few years, is extraordinary to the point where we don't know whether that would be committing council to a certain amount of need for a special rate variation or placing council in bad debt. These are prudent decisions we have to make. By delaying this decision, it provides time for the board to consider options, to be agile. The reality is council does not own this asset. Now, I can see the benefits of that model. Don't think I'm not evaluating the benefits because I am all about community partnerships. But as I raised in the public forum, should that be local government? Mr Quilty very rightly raised the example of Bundanon. Could the board consider giving Ngununggula to the federal government for its stock standard funding, and then as a council we could apply our grants policy and maybe look at 50,000 in recurrent funding after we've looked at our books and found out what we need to do. Now, this is not about the arts.
So, Councillor Russell, just want to bring everyone back to the centre again. We're talking about the contents of the amendment. So you seem to be debating the core of it. When we're meant to be talking about that Councillor Moylan's asking for a community to have an opinion, suggest their funding model, which wants a meeting. That's the basis of the debate on here. We will get back to the core of the gallery.
It does say stand deferred, subject to, and what I am talking about is the need to defer this decision at this juncture. Is what I've been talking about. Do you know? Do I need to explain anything further to you there?
Keep going.
So we do, in terms of prudence, in terms of our commitment to our community, need to look at applying a policy-driven approach in the midst of a financial sustainability crisis. We need to adopt a policy as a new incoming council that we can apply across the board. We need to look at what efficiencies we could make. As I said, this is not about the arts. I am applying this lens to all of our spending across the board. This is a principled approach because I do believe we need to partner with amazing people in the community, as are in this council forum today. I will always, that is part of my principles. But when we do that, how much we commit to, that needs to be policy driven, and it needs to be done in such a way that I know that I am not committing my community to a special rate variation, and I don't know that yet.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to this. Councillor Foley.
Yes, I'd like to speak against this amendment. A couple of comments. Councillors are not making decisions on the fly. I personally don't see anything on the fly about the business case that has been presented to us, which Ms Barn explained in the public forum, uses industry standard evidence-based data and reporting in the evidence that has been presented to us. The comment on a public meeting to ascertain community's opinion, I think really the community's opinion is pretty evident in the numbers that attend and participate in Ngununggula. For example, the programming that it delivers its art classes, in FY25 alone there was 3,969 students and 257 teachers attending over 200 education events. That, I think, speaks for itself, along with the numbers of attendees at Ngununggula at 65,000 yearly, which exceeds what they originally projected of 25,000 a year. So I don't think a public meeting is needed for us to determine whether or not Ngununggula is delivering value to all residents. I believe that it is.
Thank you. Councillor Champion.
Mr Mayor, I'll just address a misunderstanding, if I may.
What is your misunderstanding?
Councillor Foley may have not seen where I said in my amendment, Roman numeral 1, suggestions on the funding model.
Okay. Yep.
And including usage charges.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Councillor Champion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, a question to the General Manager, please. Is there a precedent in regard to the amendment calling for a public meeting to be held? Is there a precedent for meetings like this, or what other public meetings have been organised to make whole of council financial decisions?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, in terms of this type of topic, I'm not aware of a precedent.
Okay, would else like to speak to this? Councillor Champion.
Thank you. Just to follow up, could community consultation take place via some kind of exhibition process, and how would such an exhibition be executed?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the Director, Corporate Strategy and Resourcing. So And Ms Jones will explain what we do as far as the exhibition processes for the integrated planning and reporting. Thank you, Ms Jones.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Champion, that's a great question. So effectively, as a matter of routine, the draft operational budget will be presented to councillors in April. Councillors have made reference that this time around that will be supplemented by a significant suite of information, including the AEC business case, which will go on public exhibition for a month. During that time, community members will have ample opportunity to look at the impacts of certain decisions on the long-term financial plan over the next 10 years, and also the immediate impacts over the next 12 months. Following that, we've already spoken to councillors that should there be a scenario considered and adopted in the long-term financial plan in June that looks at a different rating model in terms of a special rate variation, that will actually commence a very significant process of community consultation that will take us right through to the end of this year. So the community, to answer your question succinctly, will have ample opportunity to input into the process.
Thank you. Councillor Russell.
Question through you to the General Manager. Why were councillors not provided with the audited financial reports for Ngununggula to help inform their decision making?
General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Ms Jones, could you explain what the deed contains? Thank you.
Councillor, the provisions in the deed of agreement, the funding agreement with Ngununggula, just simply say that they provide that to council. Now, that has happened routinely ever since the deed has been executed. Those financial statements go to the CFO, who does an analysis. Mr Kuzmanovsky will be able to give you an oversight of what he's looking for in those statements. Can I throw to you, Pav?
Thank you, Director. Yeah, looking at liquidity, so some of the comments that one of the public speakers made, profitability, liquidity, but also just looking that they are spending their money appropriately. It is audited as well, so they do have an independent auditor that provides certification that the statements have been prepared in accordance with the accounting standards. So at a high level, that's what I look for. Thank you.
So through you, Mr Mayor, sorry, my question wasn't quite answered. I asked why weren't councillors provided with those audited financial statements to support their decision making in this report?
General Manager.
Ms Jones.
We simply asked councillors had an operational plan action that we adopted, which was to do a business case in this financial year to support the budget process. That's all we asked of Ngununggula.
Sorry, that still doesn't answer my question.
Sorry, through Mr Mayor, just to add to what Ms Jones added. Within the deed, it says that, that the gallery provide audited financial statements to council. They are not required to have them presented to the elected body, but they have submitted them in accordance with the executed deed. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Kent.
I'm against this amendment, and can we please put the matter?
We can put this motion. We've had 2 for, 2 against. So I will now put this amendment. All those in... apologies. That's a procedural motion, correct? I get a seconder for that? Okay. I now put... So could I get a seconder to put the motion, please? Councillor Foley. All those in favour? So yes, to put the motion. All those in favour to put the motion. This is a procedural motion to put the motion. After this, we'll decide on the motion.
The amendment.
Sorry, the amendment there. So it's a procedural motion to put the amendment, which means we'll vote on it. So if you're voting to put it, I'll say so. All those in favour of putting this amendment, so putting this procedural motion is Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Russell, Councillor Fitzpatrick. All those against? Councillor Moylan, Councillor Champion. Okay, we will now put this amendment. So we're deciding whether we do or don't agree with this amendment, just so everyone's caught back up. All those in favour of this amendment? Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell. All those against? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Fitzpatrick. That is lost. So we're now in the body of the motion. Councillor Russell.
I would like to propose an amendment, please.
Have the wording for that, please.
Yes. So if we keep the first line of Councillor Moylan's up there, that the matter of funding be deferred. Sorry, just was up there. Yeah, so leave the first line up there, don't have to get rid of it. Stand deferred. Subject to until August 2026.
Could I just, is that all there was, Councillor?
That's right.
Governance, we just had a deferral voted down. Is this an acceptable, in your opinion, is this acceptable amendment considering we've just voted to not have a deferral? And is a deferral a procedural motion? I believe.
By August, we will have seen our budget that we've adopted. I can speak to my amendment if we second it.
Not yet, sorry, sir, Councillor.
The previous amendment was substantially different.
That's right, I was just checking with governance, such procedures sound. Could I get a seconder for that, please? Councillor Moylan. And again, I'll ask Councillor Farrell if you accept this amendment.
No, I do not.
Councillor Russell, you have the floor.
I am proposing that we pause for thought in the midst of our identified local government financial sustainability crisis. This isn't about the arts versus the sporting fields. This is not a culture war. This is about prudence in local government when we don't know whether we need to be considering a rate rise for our community at this point. We don't want to be committing council in the long term to any funding of such a scale over such a period of time when we don't know what the long-term financial plan modelling looks like. We don't know how this is going to affect our ratios into the future. We haven't identified all of the operational efficiencies that we could be putting in. Perhaps we could look at cutting our budget for consultants. And then who knows, we might have a surplus with which to fund the art gallery. I'm not commenting on if we are or if we aren't. I just want to have the information in front of me in regards to our financial stability. I want to make a commitment to my community that I'm looking after them, and I'm not going to be putting people out of homes, or shops out of business because I've made such a substantial commitment into the future. I've experienced what it's like to tighten my belts, and not everyone has. One of the reasons I supported Councillor Moylan's recommendation is because sometimes we can be in a bubble, and not quite understand how life is like for others, and a public meeting certainly does flush that out. We get to hear different perspectives that are beyond our usual worldview. I care about the arts as much as anyone as an artist, and I have really enjoyed spending time at Ngununggula. I really value that space. And I'm not saying that this is a death knell. I have asked the board to consider offering this to the federal government because that's a great idea. Mr Quilty said when we were outside council just before, I want to give this to council. And I thought, well, that would sort of take away from the benefits of the model that are currently expressed. I get that generosity. Please explore giving this to the federal government, like Bundanon, because I tell you what, if I look at governance principles across different levels of government, we've got local government, we've got to get our basics right. We've got state government, who is really quite strapped, but Ben, all of you, actually, the lobbying power, you have gotten funding out of the state government, but the federal government is the natural home for the ownership of a gallery as special as Ngununggula, rather than having to keep on coming back cap in hand. I want to make sure that we're doing a win for everyone. We're doing a win for council, we're doing a win for the community, we're doing a win for the gallery, we're doing the win for our ratepayers. And that's why I'm suggesting we defer it, because at this point, I cannot guarantee that we're all going to win, and that's my remit.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan. I
support Councillor Russell in this amendment. As I've already said, I think it's critical, more than ever now, that councillors have all the information before them. The financial advisors review, which we are expecting in just 1 month. We also need to have all of the budget line items before us, because every financial decision is relative to something else. And the point about public exhibition, giving community sufficient notice on any decision, it's missing the point. When we're making this decision tonight, and we've got 6 financial decisions before us, we need to know the other side of the ledger. We need to know what is being pushed out before we're making a decision. We've got 6 decisions here, but what are they in context of the overall budget? It is irresponsible to be making this decision not only on the art gallery, but all the other decisions we've got before us, and there's 6 of them, without seeing the full context. And the community must see that and have confidence that we are making decisions fully informed. Now, the other point that Councillor Russell referred to is the financial audited statements. So as I understand it, we do in fact have those financial audited statements here at Council, but for some reason they're not being shared with councillors. Now, this information is key. And likewise, on the other side, it's key for Ngununggula to see our state of affairs. That is a commercial relationship. Both parties need to see the finances of each other before being bound to a contract in the future. The other piece is we should not be receiving information on financial statements on a third party that we are in a contract with via the media. The Southern Highlands, the Southern Wire, I've made my disclosure about my association with the Southern Wire in the disclosures. 2ST are talking about it. Mr Barry Anstey seems to be across the financial statements of Ngununggula Art Gallery. Why aren't we as councillors? We're making the decision today. So I fully support this amendment. We have no rush here. This contract doesn't expire for another 2 years. It's unfair to Ngununggula Art Gallery. It's unfair to us as councillors, and it's certainly unfair to the community to be rushing through this tonight.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to this. Okay, I'll now put this amendment. All those in favour? Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell, those against? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Fitzpatrick. That is lost. We're now in the body of the motion. Would anybody like to speak to this? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. Fellow councillors, please allow me 3 minutes. I've timed it to take you through the journey that has led me to my decision today. When I first saw the renewal of the funding for the art gallery on the agenda, I have to be honest, my initial reaction was a firm hard no. Art is not exactly my thing. I struggle to draw a stick figure, and you are far more likely to find my family and me on the sidelines of a sporting field on the weekend than wandering through a gallery. I live in a southern village and drive Marimba Road and Highland Way Penrose Road multiple times each day. I'm very aware of the conditions of our roads. My first instinct was that we must focus on needs rather than wants, and that perhaps Ngununggula should not receive further funding beyond 2028. But then I realised if I was going to hold that position, I need to properly justify it. If I were to vote against funding the gallery on the basis that it is a want rather than a need, then logically I would also need to vote against funding many other discretionary services we provide. I'm not going to go through the long list because it's already been gone through. Just because I personally do not use the art gallery does not mean that the other 57,000 residents of this shire and the many visitors to our region do not. So I conducted what I might call up a small pop-up survey. I asked teachers and parents from the 2 schools my children attend. I asked families from the various activities my 4 children participate in. I'm not going to go into the list because it's a lot. The results genuinely surprised me. Almost everyone had either visited the gallery or recognised its value. The common view was that while council should not necessarily fund the entire operation, it does have a social responsibility to contribute to its running. I then took time to read the business case carefully. What became clear is that this humble regional gallery delivers outcomes aligned with several priorities in our community's strategic plan. Outcomes that council simply could not replicate on its own within our current financial constraints. In that context, contributing to the gallery's operation becomes a win-win. It represents good value for ratepayers while helping us work toward our North Star of being the best place for all generations to thrive. Now, it is true that we do have a $17 million funding gap in our roads. Even if we directed all available general revenue to roads, that gap would still exist. But if we were to remove funding from Ngununggula, on the basis that it is discretionary, then we would need to apply that same principle consistently across all discretionary spending. That would mean examining funding for sports, fields, pools, mowing, public toilets, parks, libraries and other community services. These discretionary services we just heard total $16 million. When viewed in that broader context, the $500,000 contribution to the gallery is relatively modest compared to our many other discretionary investments. For those reasons, I have decided to support the renewal of funding for the art gallery. While it may not be something I personally use, my focus is ensuring value for ratepayers while supporting cultural infrastructure where it delivers measurable cultural, social and economic value to our community.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to this. Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a question to yourself, Mr Mayor. We've heard me speak about Ngununggula Art Gallery for the last 18 months, but we haven't heard from yourself, Mr Mayor, as the leader of the community. Where do you stand on this? What is your opinion in funding the art gallery?
I will speak to this in due course. Councillor Champion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I support this motion and continued council funding for Ngununggula. Ultimately, this decision is a question of priorities. Every dollar we spend as a council is a choice, and it's true not everyone benefits from every single thing that we fund. Some people don't use the pools, some use footpaths and some don't, and some rely on roads in one part of the Shire that others have never driven on. But that's the nature of community. We invest in shared infrastructure that together makes this a place where everyone can thrive. And that's exactly what this gallery is. Ngununggula exists because our community wanted it and because for decades, volunteers, committees and advocates have worked tirelessly to make it happen. They built partnerships, they secured support, and they delivered something of incredibly high quality that the Southern Highlands can be and is very proud of. And importantly, they made it accessible. This is not an ivory tower. It's a free public space, a communal hub for creativity, a place that provides outreach programs to schools where young people engage with creativity, where older residents find connection, where First Nations communities share culture, and where people with disability and dementia are included. All of this inclusion isn't an afterthought, it's a core part of the gallery's mission. But I do recognise that some people are more convinced by budgeting. If you're less moved by the arts than by dollars and ROI, there's also a very practical argument for Ngununggula's continued support. Last financial year, the gallery attracted around 19,000 visitors, equating to $4.28 million injected into the local economy annually through our visitor expenditure. That's a 414% return on investment. Since opening, it has generated more than $10 million for the region. This makes the gallery economically load-bearing for local business community and for council. It would be irresponsible of us to pull the rug out from under it by destabilising dependent funding from state sources and philanthropy. I want to strongly argue that our regional gallery is essential civic infrastructure. It democratises access to art. It fosters identity and pride. It creates spaces for learning, connection and reflection, things that are harder to measure than a smooth road, but no less real. And choosing to support it says something about who we are as a community. If we defund Ngununggula, we strip our community of $2.8 million annually. But perhaps more importantly, we would strip it of a vibrant place of inspiration and joy and leave us all immeasurably poorer.
Councillor Kent.
Apologies, there will be some overlap in some of my sentiment. First of all, I'd like to thank the staff for the quality of the report in the business paper and to say I feel empowered to make a decision on the basis of that and other information. In supporting the officer's recommendation, I refer to our community strategic plan, as Councillor Duffy did, and specifically our North Star, which is actually looking better the more time goes on. By 2035, Wingecarribee will be the most livable place in New South Wales for all generations to thrive. Livable, thriving places obviously need the 3 Rs, but they also need, for example, strong health and wellbeing services, a strong economy, diverse sport and recreation options, and arts and culture. Ngununggula, through its partnering approach to governance, its awareness of the need to autonomously raise much of its own funding, I think it's something like 40%, it raises its own funding, which is incredible. Its management of volunteers, the depth and breadth of its arts program, and its continual striving to be a destination regional gallery is making a strong contribution to our North Star, and I'm pleased to support this recommendation. Finally, and importantly, I'd like to add that I'm impressed with the support that the arts community of the Southern Highlands provide to each other. For example, I'm aware that the Barrel District Arts Society are supportive and collaborative with Ngununggula. This is to be commended. These kind of supporting relationships are exactly what our community needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to speak in favour of the motion. And I would like to thank Ms Bunn and Mr Quilty for their contribution to the public forum in support of Ngununggula funding, demonstrating the importance of the gallery in fostering inclusion, expansive thinking and belonging in Wingecarribee. A notion that was echoed in the many emails that we received this week from Ngununggula volunteers, who I would also like to thank for their immense contribution to the gallery. Arts and culture go hand in hand. And just as arts and culture are intertwined, so are culture and community. When we talk about Ngununggula, we're talking about culture itself. Community doesn't exist without a cultural identity, and Ngununggula has, since its community-driven establishment, become embedded in the identity of the Highlands. And when we as council contribute to culture, we are contributing to our community. Ngununggula is delivering on so many of the commitments that we have made through our community strategic plan, which, along with our Creative Highlands plan, commits us to vibrant cultural activities, strong community connections, and a resilient local economy supported by place-based identity and tourism. Our ongoing funding allows Ngununggula as a council partner to deliver on all of these with certainty, confidence, and measured strategic direction. We've recognised the importance of tourism in the CSP, specifically under our economy, outcome 4.3, we are a visitor destination. Continued funding provides Ngununggula with the certainty required to plan strategically, build sustainably and deliver with certainty. This certainty allows the gallery to continue improving its ambitious programs and exhibitions while strengthening its contribution to our community. Ngununggula has already hosted the Archibald with 15,000 visitors and the Wynne Prize and has a reputation for excellence. And let's be clear, that brings visitors and tourists. Ngununggula outperforms other regional galleries with their visitor numbers, 65,000, proving that they are a gallery that people want to come to. Ngununggula is punching above its weight compared to other regional galleries in visitor numbers, with Shoalhaven at 46,000, Goulburn at 23,000, and almost on par with Campbelltown at 70,000. This is a significant indicator of the quality program and active engagement Ngununggula is offering. These comparable councils also have to fund their galleries at a much higher rate than Wingecarribee. 2024 figures show that council contributions to other regional galleries at 1.46 for Maitland Regional Art Gallery, over 900,000 for Goulburn Regional Gallery, and 1.1 million for Orange Regional Gallery. This excludes capital works or depreciation, as these councils own their own art gallery facilities, which we do not. By comparison, 500,000 for our own regional gallery represents a significantly lower investment and a much lower risk profile. It is a partnership that delivers outcomes far greater than those achieved through building and owning our own facility, which is the traditional way that regional art galleries have been established. It is far less burdensome and supports exceptional outcomes for our community. The impact is not just in visitor numbers alone, but in visitor spending. The independent economic impact assessment recognised the role that the gallery played in boosting our local economy by several $1 million in 2024-2025. That's a pretty good return on our $500,000 investment. And these are visitors that shop locally, eat in our cafes and restaurants and stay in our accommodation, directly supporting our small businesses and local economy. And our partnership with Ngununggula ensures that we are actually delivering on our commitment that we as councillors made to support local businesses in a tangible way. Quite simply, if we want people to have a reason to visit the Southern Highlands, a regional gallery which has proven impact makes sense for us to support. It's been made clear to me that Ngununggula represents best value, not simply just value for money. Best value is about long-term community value, the social, cultural and economic outcomes that flow from sustained investment in organisations with proved outcomes. This particular model of partnership with a not-for-profit is a great example of how council can provide best value, not having had to contribute to the capital costs, but providing support for operational ongoings means that we are seeing value from day one of our funding. Councils are expected to provide services, facilities and activities that support the social, cultural and economic wellbeing of their communities. Arts and culture are not optional extras. They are part of how we meet our obligations to our community. This is not a want, it is a need. By funding the gallery, we are spreading that support to a huge range of local businesses through the resulting visitor economy. The measured impact of Ngununggula in economic support for our local businesses, as well as the exceptional social outcomes delivered by the gallery, makes this a sound use of our funds, and I endorse this recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Moylan.
I'd like to address a misunderstanding, Mr Mayor.
Go ahead. What's your misunderstanding?
So Councillor Foley, Councillor Duffy and Councillor Champion are referring to a judgment call on whether the arts is important or not. The position I have put forward is this is a question of funding and financial responsibility. We need to have all the information before us.
So, Councillor, did they say that you said that in their speaking? Because that would be what the misunderstanding refers to, is someone misunderstanding you. But I don't know that in this context that they've misunderstood you personally, because that's the context of a misunderstanding.
There's a lot of reference to wants over needs, needs over wants, and the culture wars. This is a matter of funding.
It's not attributed to you, but I don't believe so. They're not attributing those comments to you, so I don't see that as a
Certainly, Mr.
misunderstanding.
Mayor.
Thank you.
I understand.
Okay, Councillor Russell.
I find it very disappointing that I am placed in a situation by my colleagues where it is made to look as if I do not want to find a way of making this, our relationship with Ngununggula work in a financially viable way or principled way. I spoke earlier about the different roles and responsibilities of different levels of government, because when we are in financially austere times, we need to go back to our core principles and we need to get the basics right of what our core principles are when we visibly don't have the money in our budget to do everything. By committing $500,000 here or there, whether it be Ngununggula or basketball or whatever, at this point in time, and we haven't been able to commit $500,000 a year to footpaths because we're stretched too thin, we're not getting our basics right. I'm not saying that we might not be in a position with some better management potentially of how we use consultants as an organisation, how we use public money to spend money on contractors and consultants. Who knows what we'd be able to achieve as a community. But at this point in time, we are not getting there. We have not spent money on footpaths like we have an art gallery or, to Ben Quilty's point, mowing football fields or whatever it is. But, you know, often the community do mow their own fields where they can. And I have to say that it speaks to the perhaps unacknowledged privilege that there are some sectors of our community that can punch more than their weight in getting funding off the ground, you know, but you can't get the average mum and dad who's able to contribute so much. Now, I just want to make sure that we're looking after everyone in our community here. And in this same agenda, we have a Disability Inclusion Action Plan, and it's got a whole lot of things in it we should have gotten right decades ago. Now, we haven't gotten them right. So, to my mind, we need to be agile in our thinking and tighten our belts across the board, so it's not just about arts funding, but we perhaps would have been better off if we just deferred this so we could explore those other ways that we could work in partnership with Ngununggula. But no, I find that local government, the poor cousin of government, is being bullied again into making a rushed decision.
Point of order.
Councillor Kent, what is your point of order?
No one's being bullied because the councillor doesn't agree with the presentation.
My experience...
Sorry, thank you. I'll uphold that point of order. So, Councillor, if you can continue without that rhetoric, please.
I find that the easy option is being taken here. Put more pressure on local government when local government has had cost shifting up to its eyeballs. It wouldn't take much to defer this to explore other options, but instead we're going forward now at this extraordinary time before we've adopted our own grants policy where we could evenly apply funding so we were as fair to Ngununggula as we are to the Bowral District Arts Society, as we are to the CTC in Robertson, as we are to our sporting associations. But no, I don't find equity in this proposal, and I don't find timingless. I find the who, what, when, where and why of this decision is not calibrated with best practice, good governance, and so not aligned with our North Star vision and our own key focus areas.
Thank you. Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll speak to this motion now. I want to make sure I illustrate my point in an example, a hypothetical example. So imagine, if you will, Mr Mayor, having a building business and your expenses are more than your revenue. You're unable to pay your bills, unable to put food on the table for your family. And you go to your accountant and say, can you just look at all of my business, all of the figures, look at all the books, what am I doing wrong? Come back to me in a couple of months' time and tell me what I need to do. And while you're waiting for your accountant to look at the books and come back to you with their professional advice, a great deal of Ryobi products comes to you. And the salesperson says, this is a great deal for you. It's much better than Makita products. And the only catch is you need to sign this contract, this fixed term contract, with a fixed price now. And you say, as the business owner, but I've got my accountant coming back to me with a review. Should I just spend it without knowing how much money I've got? Or should I do the responsible thing and wait for the review to come back? Now, I have many probity concerns here. This is not about the art gallery. It's not their fault that they've been put under the spotlight here. The concerns I have, adding to what I've said before, our council are running at a deficit of accumulated over the last 4 years, $43 million. And we're expected to be in deficit for the next 4 years. Does Ngununggula know this? Do they know what sort of contract they're going to be bound by? This may be considered unconscionable, which is very serious in legal world. Secondly, we cannot bind council and Ngununggula into a contract in the future when we're still waiting for our current information on our own finances and Ngununggula's finances, which are yet to be provided to us, the financial statements. And to Mr Onoswaru's valid point, this council, this mayor and this general manager may not be there when this contract starts. Let's be clear, the contract with Ngununggula doesn't expire until 2028. Why are we pushing this through? Again, this is not about the art gallery. If we're managing our finances right and we're looking after the roads and the basic things, then we wouldn't have Ngununggula under the spotlight. We wouldn't be here debating it. But because we're not managing, it appears, our finances the best, and we're not looking after the fundamentals, Now something like this comes up and it seems unreasonable. So I have a lot of probity concerns in how we're doing things, and that's why I think we must put it into the community's hands. I want to consult the community. It is no point putting this decision now, operating in a vacuum, not seeing the overall budget, not seeing the expert report that is only a month away, that we've paid for, and not seeing the financial statements and making this decision tonight when we don't have to rush it through. We need to have all the information in front of us for a decision that will bind council and Ngununggula Art Gallery into the future when we're not here. I condemn this motion on those reasons, and I strongly suggest all the information be put before the councillors, including the financial statement and the expert report. And I strongly recommend that we have a consultation with the community on this very important decision.
Thank you. So I'll speak to this. We've talked a lot about principles tonight. Now, the fundamental function of a CSP is not just for council to deliver, it is for all other agencies and people to deliver, sometimes on our behalf. The gallery does an incredible amount of heavy lifting. If we don't want to fund the heaviest lifter in the arts and culture space, why are we projecting to the community that we are working in that space within the CSP? It should be removed if people are not happy with that. That should be taken out as an element space we do not play in. And then we wouldn't have to debate whether we should do it. But we've made a commitment under the Community Strategic Plan to work in this space, and the gallery delivers in this space. Second principles, and it's touched on by many councillors tonight, discretionary funds. And look, it's been repeated. If a brave councillor wants to walk in here, move a motion, and I'll open it up today if you would like, to stop all discretionary spends, all of them. And when you stop all discretionary spends and divert it to legislative obligations, only then can you sit here and tell me that this is the right thing to make. Other than that, we work in the space of discretionary spending. Like you've said, we do the pools, we do the we do parks, we do paths. Now, if we are going to continually do discretionary funds, we must balance those funds. If we are not, move a motion to stop spending discretionary funds. And lastly, the decisions we are making, there seems to be confusion around the AEC work, the decisions we are making are to inform our long-term financial plan. That is a 10-year plan. The decisions we are making in the lead up to April are informing AEC to say, here's your position, here's what you've decided, and from here on out, here is what it looks like. I don't think I need to add any more. Would you like your right of reply, Councillor Farrell?
Yeah, we need to make this decision now so we can allow the gallery to forecast into the future. I think we've had enough debate. We've been going backwards and forwards for, I don't know, it seems like 10 hours, but it's a bloody long time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I now put this motion. All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Fitzpatrick. All those against? Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell. That is carried. Feel free, if you were here for just that item, you can, not pushing you out, but if you want to go, that's fine. Next we have item 8.1.2. Councillor Moylan, you flagged that you were leaving for this item. Okay. Item 8.1.2, multi-purpose indoor sporting facility. Are we... Sorry, apologies, Councillor. I move a procedural motion that the Council permits Stephen Head of Local Government Project Solutions to present to Council a report on the site selection for Council proposed multi-purpose centre. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Duffy. All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. All those against? Councillor Russell. That is carried, and we will see him on screen. Is that correct? Oh no, he's in person. All yours whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, councillors, staff and members of the gallery. Look, thank you very much for the opportunity to present our report to you. I understand it's on the business paper this evening, so I just thought I might just spend a little bit of time, introduce ourselves, just run through a little bit of the process that we undertook in doing this assessment, just then look at the various criteria that you'd set through your policy and council's resolution from November of last year, and then just maybe spend a bit more time on a couple of what we thought were the key criteria. First, I'm Stephen Head, and I'm working with Peter Coulton, and Peter Coulton is the Director of Local Government Project Solutions, which is a firm which provides specialist advisory consultancy services to local government, advisory service reviews, business planning, and yes, this particular team has a couple of former general managers who collectively have a number of decades of experience in developing, building, managing, operating various recreational facilities, including sort of wet and dry indoor facilities. Just a little bit about the process that we undertook. We were asked to undertake an assessment of two sites, the Lucky Park site and the Mittagong Oval site, to see which would be the best one or the most preferable site in which to locate a future indoor recreation facility. To undertake that, we visited and analysed both sites. We visited both sites on a number of occasions to look at them. We also spoke in detail with a number of stakeholders, and I'm going to pay tribute a number of times tonight to engagement we had with Moss Vale District Basketball Association. They are a very valuable community asset that you have, both their buildings that they have as well as the group and the work that they do in the community. We also, as I said, we talked to them in detail. We also looked at, but in terms of what you asked us to look at, which was a 4-court indoor facility. We examined that both in terms of the scale of land that it would be required. We also looked at the potential uses that you would look to have at that particular site, so that we could get a better understanding of how and where it might best be suited. As I mentioned, we spoke to, I think, in excess of 11 or 12 key stakeholder groups, met with the Basketball Association, I think at least 4 or 5 times across the project. I really thank them for the work that they did. They helped us to refine the criteria that you'd set for us, and that was a really important part for us of being able to go through and undertake this assessment. I've got a couple of slides that I thought I might use, which just might outline just the sites for you, just so that we're familiar with what we're looking at. First one we're looking at is the Lucky Park site. You can see the existing Moss Vale District Basketball Association facility, which contains the 2 courts and some offices and some other areas, cafe on the site. You can see to the left of that, you can see the vacant lots, which is the area that we specifically assessed for this project. And of course, the courts and the vacant lots are adjacent to Lucky Park proper, which is a fairly basic sort of local level recreation facility at this stage, used mostly for cricket. The Highlands District Cricket Association and the Moss Vale Cricket Club are really the key inhabitants. We can't see any much evidence of winter use there. Their facilities are very, very basic. In fact, we had a number of good conversations with them during the project. Just dropping down a little bit more, you can see the vacant lots. This is where we really focused our attention in terms of the assessment of the site. Noting, of course, there's about 6,000 square metres of vacant land there. The site that's the lot that's directly adjacent to the existing basketball courts is zoned private recreation. The 2 on the left are currently residentially zoned lots. one of the things that we undertook when we mentioned earlier that we were looking at the scale of facility, when we're looking at all of the uses that have been suggested in the resolutions of council coming back to November. So that meant that we effectively felt we needed to design a facility that was around about 4,750 square metres. Now, it's quite possible you can site those over multiple levels, make it small. There's all sorts of things you can do, but what we just took an assumption that all of it would be at ground level effectively, and we used that same assumption across both sites. So you can see there a facility of that size takes up the majority of the sites that are available, and certainly in needing to manage parking, something I'll talk to a little bit later, probably some shortfall there, which would mean we would need to utilise some of the land on Lackey Park, probably looking at an additional entrance, and certainly part of the work you would need to do with the basketball association would be understanding how we would manage things like parking across the site. Just for reference, you would need around about 250 car spaces of parking to satisfy 6 courts across that site. Just jumping across to Mittagong, and quite a different site, that Mittagong. You can see there's a number of facilities that actually sit within the Mittagong Oval Precinct, and I think the speaker from Water Polo sort of talked a little bit to that earlier in the public forum. You can see that there's as part of the overall site, we've got the former pool area, which of course Council's currently looking at undertaking a rewilding project. I think that should be really interesting on the site. You've got the golf club, which exists. And of course, the golf club is relatively well utilised, and of course has both kiosk and bar facilities. You've also got the existing PCYC facility, which has a single court and also a gymnasium space. Quite well utilised, actually. I was quite impressed with, given the scale of the facility. We met with the manager of the site there, and I have to say I thought they were doing a really good job on behalf of council at the moment there. Can't quite sort of make it out too clearly on the screen there, but of course you've got the holiday park, sits adjacent to the Oval, and of course the Oval itself is home for, I think it's Mittagong Lions, I think from memory. You've got both a senior and a junior football club there. Of course there's other links from that area running up towards potential mountain bike tracks, and of course it sits adjacent to the Old Hume Highway, which I think is a really key part in that it's quite a prominent location. And I think in that sense, despite the fact that there would need to be intersection upgrades, it does provide you with quite some benefit in terms of getting good passing by traffic, but also being able to get access in and out of the site. Just jumping down to, and it's possibly sort of going to the end and then coming back, we looked at where we might place the facility on the site, and contrary to some earlier sort of proposals of where the facility might be located, we looked to choose a site that we felt, one, would move it as far away from any bushfire threat, also some of the flooding concerns that exist at the lower portions of the site. We also think there's a really nice synergy that would operate there of the site sitting adjacent to the Oval. You can sort of run complementary uses of outdoor and indoor leisure. And in fact, one of the things that council seeks to achieve here is place-making opportunities across the site. I think you've got some real opportunities that come from that. Councillors, just to move on and just to look at the assessment. We took the assessment criteria that you've set in your community facilities recreation strategy and what was contained in your resolution from November, and then in conjunction with basketball and ourselves, we refined that slightly. And I just thought I might work through these very, very quickly just before I then just touch base on the 3 that we think were the key pieces of criteria. Site ownership, I'm going to come back to that one. Ease of construction. There's no doubt that Moss Vale would represent a better and an easier facility if it's just a build cost that you're looking at. It's a flat, relatively level site without too much in the way of flora or fauna, not much in the way of trees that need to be removed. It will be more simple than Mittagong. Mittagong does, in itself, with some differing levels, does offer some opportunities for how you might produce things like car parking in an undercroft and in the way that you might integrate an entire site. But from a straight-out construction process, Moss Vale definitely wins. I've already mentioned flora and fauna. We don't really think there's anything that's too substantial there. There will be tree loss at Mittagong, and that will need to be looked at. There's some endemics of tree species, but they're in relatively poor condition at Mittagong, and I think, in fact, probably requires some further assessment. From the point of view of traffic and access, there's no doubt at Mittagong you would need to do an upgrade to the main intersection, and that would be a negotiation with Transport for New South Wales as to how you would do that. But if you're going to look to establish a recreation precinct and create a real place, it's just going to be one of the issues that you would need to deal with. Moss Vale, whilst it's in an interesting area in that there's a mix of both residential, retail and commercial interests, and as well as the recreation facility, you would need to understand that you would be bringing traffic through fairly quiet residential streets. Up to 400 movements an hour at absolute peak times is the sort of volume that you would be looking to bring in if you have a completely well utilised centre. So you can imagine on a Saturday when these centres are being absolutely fully utilised, you're bringing that sort of number of vehicles in and out on a regular basis. When we looked at availability and access of alternatives, I won't spend too much time. There are the two courts at Moss Vale that provide some and probably have a little bit of capacity, certainly not in peak periods they don't, but certainly outside of that they do. Up into the Mittagong area, we've got, of course, got the single court that council owns at Hilltop. We've got the PCY court, and there are two courts at Frensham. We really called that a little bit of a sort of like a no-winner, if you like, in that situation. When we looked at the opportunity for placemaking, which was one of the things that we saw was a key criteria from the council, we looked there at sort of what's the opportunity to really build a precinct, to really build a place that can be a destination. We just felt that when you looked at Mittagong and what's already on offer, its location adjacent to the high school, and the fact that you already have plans underway to develop that facility, we just felt that there's a better opportunity at Mittagong than what there is at Moss Vale. It's not to say you can't achieve some of those things at Moss Vale, but you're starting at a very, very different point. You're starting with effectively just a sporting precinct at the moment and not much more. I'll talk to population growth a little bit further in a minute. When we looked at flooding and fire, there's minor flooding issues for Moss Vale, but pretty minor. Mittagong doesn't contain too much in the way of flooding issues if you look at siting where we would propose that the facility occur. So we really thought that was a bit of a draw in that sense. When we looked at the opportunity for maximising community participation, which was another element that we felt the council were really interested in, again, we just believe that the opportunity that comes from the Mittagong site is higher than what exists at Moss Vale at this point of time. You're starting completely afresh with a facility there. You've got the ability then to through, dependent on how you manage that model, to really generate access for all of the groups and to meld in that use with all of the other uses and the opportunities that you have across the site. Sustainability, I'll come back to that in terms of some financial partnerships. There is no doubt that both Moss Vale Basketball, but also a site at Mittagong, will all have the opportunity to develop really good partnerships with the community. In fact, it's one of the key recommendations that we would make to you in any ongoing project. You really should look at a governance model that brings along users for the journey with you, and that's at either site. You should really sort of look to engage. It's not to have users dictate the end design of the facility, but it's certainly about making sure they're part of the journey. It's a great way to get buy-in. I'd like to come back and talk about effective management and the maintenance model. That's one of the key issues that we believe is a really important one. And just to touch on very, very briefly, the ability to provide a new facility on public land to allow council to apply development contributions. Just to touch on that very quickly, you can, as a council, providing you have your facility identified in an appropriate contributions plan, you can look to fund at least a part of the development of that new facility if it's on public land. You can't apply funding to the development contribution funds to the development of a facility that's on privately owned land, nor at this stage could you use development contribution funds, if you had them available, for the purchase of private land such as this without having it identified in an appropriate plan. And I'd say there's a number of steps you would need to go before you do that. We did note from the council resolution that seemed to be one of the key things that council wanted an answer to. If there's anything we've missed, we're more than happy to answer questions on that. There were three aspects, councillors, that we thought were really important. That was about site ownership and actually access to the land required to develop and deliver a facility, an effective maintenance and management model going forward, and population growth. Just in terms of looking at site ownership at this point of time, you own the site at Mittagong. It's zoned appropriately. Yet there are no encumbrances on the land, and council is able to undertake planning with the community for what you would seek to achieve on that site. Mittagong is not owned by council, as you're aware. It's a privately owned facility. I'm sorry, apologies. Mossvale is a privately owned land, and you would need to come to terms with the basketball association as to what your purchase of that site or transfer of that site might look like. We made the point in the report that quite rightly the association would expect to be compensated reasonably if they're to give land across to council. On that basis, we just believe that it's a much easier and a much more beneficial opportunity that council doesn't have to look for how it would fund the Mossvale facility. You already own the land at Mittagong and it's yours, and you manage it on behalf of the community already. Effective maintenance and management of a site like this is one of the really important elements. We had some really good discussions with the Basketball Association. We talked about first how council or how the association might consider a transfer of the land to council and on what terms that might be. We had some quite good discussions that ultimately that concluded in the letter that I believe is an attachment to the business paper. We also had ongoing discussions with the association around, well, what would a management model look like? You would potentially have a 2-court facility, an older 2-court facility sitting adjacent to a new 4-court facility. I think it was a full credit to the association that they accepted that you would need to run this as a single facility. It would be crazy to have 2 facilities sitting so close to each other and running them as completely separate facilities. Both are going to effectively compete against each other. I think we use the term in the report, they will cannibalise both revenue and customers from each other. It's effectively, in my mind, it would be an absolute failure before you begin. But there are real complications in bringing the 2 sites together. How do you manage an older site that's owned by another group who have certain expectations, quite reasonable expectations, I might add? How do you manage that with an adjacent 4-court facility that you need to think about how you're going to get the best return on that? These are really expensive pieces of infrastructure, and you would need to be absolutely sure of what the agreement looks like going forward before you enter into it. We outlined in the report, I won't go through them here, but there are a number of factors that you will need to go through. Everything from what award would staff who are employed in the facility be required to work under? How would insurances work? What liabilities would you have for a facility that may not yet reach, but may not yet be fully compliant if you develop a brand new facility and you have the 2 of them connected? I'm talking about building code type restrictions here. How do you manage sort of, a user group such as netball might look across and say, well, hang on a minute, basketball are getting this facility at a discounted rate, we think, and we have to pay sort of full freight for fares. So there's just so many things that you would need to work through. Now, it's not even appropriate to even think about how you'd resolve those now, but you need to be completely aware of all of those before you would enter into that. So I suppose what we're suggesting there is, with all of the best goodwill, and I've got to say it was absolutely good to be talking with the association as we did, there are just a number of really complex factors, and I can tell you, having done this for decades, the number of times you were trying to unwind agreements that were made in good faith decades ago but haven't proved to be in the light of day or with years great for councils and broader communities. So you need to think really carefully. So there's just complexity in that, despite everyone entering into a discussion in good faith. I won't spend too much time there. Population growth, we thought was a really interesting one, councillors. We started off probably with an initial understanding that there was a greater population sort of around the Mossvale facility. We used a product called Gap Map, which undertakes and looks at the catchments around it, which is effectively what operators in this industry will seek to do. They would look to understand within a 20-minute catchment is the usual. We extended that out, looked at both a 20 and a 30-minute catchment from each facility to understand sort of what is the total size of the catchment that exists at the moment now and looking into the future. And what that information told us is that over time, you can have a much more substantial catchment at Mittagong. not only are you going to have a much larger catchment, and the numbers are on the screen, I think it's something in the order of sort of a 40% to the difference in catchment size, which is quite significant. If you then overlay the AusPlay data, and the AusPlay data gives us participation rates for various sports. We basically did it on basketball, but it applies across most codes. And given the likely demographic makeup of the Mittagong catchment, as we looked at, it's going to tell you that there's a much greater participation rate that's going to exist in that northern area. I'm happy to go through that in more detail, but we just felt that those three factors were probably the ones we gave the most weight to sort of in the assessment process. Notwithstanding that, and I've mentioned a number of times, Mossvale District Basketball Association may be a privately owned community facility, but it's brought substantial value to your community. And so notwithstanding our recommendation, it's very firm that we believe the Mittagong site is the appropriate one to go forward with. We think that you should be continuing to work with the Mossvale to see how you can support them achieve their aims. We also gave you some separate recommendations for the Highlands District Cricket Association and Mossvale Cricket Club. We believe they have some good utilisation. They have some really good ideas that they would like to see implemented at Lucky Park. We believe there's a real opportunity for council to actually work with those groups to see if, subject to them being able to deliver appropriate infrastructure, why you wouldn't look at working towards a lease or a licence with them. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope it didn't take too much time.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Russell.
Thank you for your presentation. I've got quite a number of questions, please bear with me. The first one was about the modelling regarding the 30-minute drive to Mittagong. Was that just within the Wingecarribee, or were you actually extending into the Wallandilly LGA there?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yes, it partially goes into the top end of the Wallandilly LGA. There's no doubt people drive half an hour to these sorts of facilities, and one of the points we would make is that if council's going to look at a new forecourt complex, you need to look at attracting as many people as you possibly can to make it a viable facility going into the future. People will drive from Wallandilly to use that. Yes, I did discuss with Wallandilly Council. They do have plans for several facilities to be built up there in the years coming forward. That doesn't mean that those same user groups won't potentially also use Mittagong.
Thank you. Councillor Russell.
Through you, Mayor. So about how many of that proportion would you be taking from the Wallandilly catchment in the Mittagong 30-minute drive?
Councillor, I couldn't tell you the exact number off the top, but it's a reasonable proportion, but it's not significant in that sense.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, how did you match your projections against our local housing strategy? Because you've actually, I think even including Wallandilly, you've exceeded all projections for the entire Shire, saying that's going to be within Wallandilly catchment.
Yeah, no, thank you, Councillor. The work we've done sort of relies on some analysis that comes through from ID forecast. I mean, we've taken into account both your housing strategy as it exists today, but it's also looking realistically at probably at population projections that are a little broader than just what's in your current planning strategies.
Through you, Mayor, being a general manager, you would know that the whole point of having a housing strategy is that we project what we can as a Shire sustainably maintain into the future. I'm curious about how you've come up with a population projection that way exceeds our entire Shire for a 30-minute drive of Mittagong, but I'll move on. What are your criteria for community engagement? Like, you've ticked Mittagong, but you haven't ticked Mossvale. I'm just wondering, how are you suggesting that that's not an even keel of community engagement?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I'm not quite sure exactly what you're referring to, but if we're talking about sort of the opportunity for community engagement participation in the site, at the Mittagong site, you already have a number of additional community user groups. You've got the golf course, you have the existing PCY facility, which has an established customer and client base there. You have the holiday park, which is adjacent to the site. You have the Mittagong Lions, both the junior and the senior rugby league football club. You have just general users to the site. Our understanding is that council will be undertaking a rewilding process at Mittagong, let alone the opportunity for connections to mountain biking and other bits that have been outlined to us that may well occur. So it was looking at what your potential is there. It's not to say that these things can't be established at Moss Vale, far from it, but you've got the basis of these things are already happening at the Mittagong site at the moment.
You talked about the necessary intersection upgrades. I understand that would come at considerable cost. Did you look at any of those projections of what those intersection upgrades at Mittagong how they could play into the overall costing?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So we didn't do a specifics of analysis of the costs. What I can tell you is the costs that happen the costs that occur and get given to councils for intersection upgrades vary greatly. I've seen fairly basic intersection upgrades that cost in the millions of dollars. I've seen quite significant upgrades that cost considerably less. I'd note that you're on a state road. My understanding is that Transport for New South Wales have been undertaking a corridor strategy for that area. It would be, if council decides to progress with this, you would need to engage with Transport for New South Wales around where this corridor sits in their broader strategy, what they might be looking at doing, and seeing what comes out of ultimately the traffic, the demand scenarios. What we wish to be was transparent with you to say we think it would need to see signalisation of that intersection. We wanted to be upfront so that council was aware of that going into the process.
Through you, Mayor. We're acknowledging that a master plan for the Moss Vale precinct has already been contributed and invested in by the community. How much would council have to pay on consultants' fees, do you think, for a master plan, a similar style master plan of the Mittagong precinct?
That's really a question of how long is a piece of string, according to what you might want to have happen. It may well be that council's able to undertake that project internally, so they may not wish to use consultants. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Champion.
Sorry, excuse me for eating a lolly, just trying to keep my blood sugar up. Excuse me, through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Head. I'd like to just ask a quick follow-up question on your concerns about the flora and fauna at the Mittagong site. Could you elaborate a little bit on the tree loss and, for example, tell us what species you're talking about and how that might be managed?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So across the site, there's quite a variety of trees that are there. Whilst I'm a horticulturist, I'm not an arborist, so I don't feel qualified to answer completely. Effectively, the site that we propose mostly has an exotic sort of tree planting that runs along the fringe of the oval, so there would be some impact on some of those trees that are there. Previous siting opportunities, I understand, looked at positioning the facility more into the car park area, if you like, which would mean the removal of some of the endemic or the native trees that happen there. I would add, but that a number of the trees that are on the site appear to me to be in poor to sort of unhealthy, or at least requiring assessment in terms of their condition. So I think, you would look at that as part of progressing the project to understand in terms of both the siting of the facility. You would look at things, well, how can you adjust the siting to make sure that you're not dealing with, with mature trees that might be in really good health, as an example, or for that, or siting into areas where you can have less impact overall on vegetation. So I think that is one of the attributes, there's no doubt, of the Mittagong site. Its vegetation does give it an absolutely wonderful feel when you're down there.
Okay. Thank you very much. Cheers. All right, we might have a... Oh, sorry. break. I'll move a procedural motion to have a 5-minute break. A seconder, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Has carried unanimously. And when we resume, we'll resume item 8.1.2. the item 8.1.2, multi-purpose indoor sporting facility site selection. The recommendation on page 13. Firstly, we'll do a procedural motion to move back into the meeting because we were listening to the speaker. So procedural motion, we move back to the meeting. Could I get a seconder? Councillor Champion, all those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Sorry, Councillor Moyen, we haven't done the item yet. We haven't even started. Okay. Could I have a mover for this, please? Councillor Kent, and a seconder. Councillor Duffy, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation and make the following observations. In terms of the location, whilst I note the preference for Mittagong in the comparative assessment report based on population and catchment numbers, I believe both Mossvale and Mittagong are viable locations for different reasons. For example, Mossvale is more the geographic centre of the Wingecarribee Shire, assisting those travelling from the southern villages. Secondly, the model proposed for the site by Mossvale Basketball would see the existing 2-court facility retained by them, on land owned by them, and a new 4-court facility built by council next door to the existing 2-court facility on land to be purchased by the ratepayer. It gives me no joy to say that I think this model is very messy, and supporting such an approach today would only add complexity to an already fraught issue that has been in the civic domain for at least 10 to 15 years. In fulfilling our duties as councillors, one of our obligations, as outlined in the Local Government Act, is to represent the collective interests of residents, ratepayers and the local community. I believe part of this representation is to provide clarity in decision making so that the council and the community can have certainty of direction. Of the 2 options presented in this report, only the Mittagong option provides that clarity. Thanks.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is very close to my heart, as is all my beloved sport. I have a deep appreciation for the passion, advocacy and hard work undertaken by the Mossvale and District Basketball Association. The dedication of all volunteers who work tirelessly to grow sport in our community should never be underestimated, and I sincerely commend them for their efforts. However, as much as this touches a personal interest of mine, I was democratically elected to consider the best outcome for all ratepayers across our very large and diverse shire. At the heart of this decision is value for money. Council cannot responsibly commit funds to compensate Mossvale Basketball for the value of the land when Council already owns suitable land in Mittagong. We have undertaken our due diligence, and while I acknowledge this may not be the outcome many, including myself, had personally hoped for, our decisions must be guided by strategy, fairness and long-term planning for the entire community. From a strategic perspective, the Mittagong location is best placed to serve the future of our shire. Importantly, this decision does not prevent Mossvale and District Basketball Association from pursuing their development, and as is recommended in the report, the council work with them, and I would absolutely encourage them to continue exploring opportunities. What this decision does is to ensure that council remains consistent with its strategic direction and continues to make responsible decisions on behalf of our ratepayers.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to this. Councillor Champion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, a question to the General Manager, please. We heard from Mr Head earlier about the endemic tree species at the Mittagong site. Could you outline how that might be remediated, or how we could ensure that endemic tree species are properly cared for if we do resolve on the Mittagong site?
General Manager.
Through Mr Mayor, and I may actually go to Mr McCabe in terms of a development, the perspective of delivering a project. But as with any project, we work with the site constraints and look at how those, if the trees are critical and in good health and mature, how can they be retained on site and worked around that. If the trees are not in good condition or for whatever reason, then maybe they're not as critical. Mr McCabe, is there anything you'd like to add to that in terms of how we may look at that?
For you, General Manager, all I'd say is post-selecting a site, detailed siting and design would impact placement and impact. So that's probably all I can add.
Councillor Champion.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, another question on a different issue. General Manager, have stakeholders been, have the various sporting stakeholders ever been in the room together to discuss the implications of the CRFS or this particular proposal?
Through you, Mr Mayor, there's been significant consultation with the CRF, and Mr McAllister or Mr Robinson may want to talk about that. So we have sports forums. I know that the CRF has been the topic of conversation in those sports forums. During the period of administration, we also had a panel where, again, the strategy was the subject of those discussions. And in terms of the consultation for this particular project, I don't believe they've all been in the room. No, I'm getting a shaking head. But definitely as we've gone along with the broader strategy. Mr McAllister, can you add further detail?
Through you, General Manager, I will defer to Mr Robinson, just given his detailed knowledge through the development of the CRFS.
Thank you, General Manager. Through you, Mayor. In essence, yes. I believe there has been. There's been consultation throughout the CRFS process, but also at every stage throughout exhibition and adoption in the following sports forums. And then even as part of this site selection analysis and report, there were on-site meetings with the stakeholders of all sites. So the two primary stakeholders of Mossvale, we met in the room together. The primary stakeholders of the Mittagong site, we all met together on site. So there still has been that, that consultation and collaboration, not trying to isolate different stakeholders. It's been collaborative throughout the whole process. But I do acknowledge it hasn't achieved the outcomes that some individuals or individual sporting groups would like to see. But I don't believe that then means that consultation hasn't been had throughout that process.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, would Councillor Champion like to ask me how those have been, because I was present at some of them?
Sorry, Councillor, you can't ask a councillor to ask you a question. Would you like anything else? Okay, would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Russell.
I have been present at the aforementioned, for those who don't know the acronyms, community and recreational facilities strategies that were consultation sessions that were conducted during administration. I was present for the study. I was present for the consultants and then had to be employed to review the study. And I heard from local knowledge about site suitability, and repeatedly none of the information that was provided by the local community that was factually accurate actually ended up in the strategy or the study, to the point where we came back last year with an aquatics facility strategy that our chief engineer, after council had adopted, had to go and apologise to the local community because of all of the errors in the report. We are not working off documents that are based and grounded in local knowledge here, that contain the projects that the community has been invested in over extended periods of time. We instead have employed yet another group of consultants to provide us with, I will say, some spurious projections, given the fact that their greater population projections for the Mittagong area within half an hour than is in our local housing strategy projections for the entire Shire to 2050. So, on that basis, with all due respect to the retired general managers who have been contracted as consultants to perform yet another review, I find I cannot trust the basis on which we have this recommendation. I am perfectly prepared to accept that there may be some governance issues that we need to tidy up in regards to the Mossvale proposal. But I just look at the principles of public transport. Mossvale, within walking distance of a train station, Mittagong, is going to require considerable transport infrastructure amendments that will amount to millions of dollars, will require a master plan, will require, and I remember from my attendance at the consultations that there were issues, operational issues with the site at Mittagong, not to mention the fact that I don't know if there are any TECs that will really constrain, TECs being threatened ecological communities like Southern Highlands Shale Woodland, that would really constrain the building before we embark on this decision. And I think that the way to resolve this is actually to defer this decision and have a public meeting so we actually get that local knowledge in a room that you're suggesting, Councillor Champion, finally into a council document. Wouldn't that be a relief? I am sick and tired of working off a strategy that was fundamentally flawed from its inception. I mean, we are just mopping up dog's breakfast after dog's breakfast, and I do feel sorry for the consultants who've been contracted here today, because they were probably given that and they took that in good faith. Yet the errors have been provable, and council was misled when it came to the aquatics strategy policy. So I am going to propose an amendment.
Councillor Smith had a hand. 2 seconds.
Councillor Russell just said that council's been misled. That seems like a very serious accusation.
Yeah, look, Councillor, I'll ask you not to speak on
Thank
behalf
you.
of council.
That was actually, I spoke about the aquatics facility strategy. I put up, and in that strategy, it suggested that Bundanon Pool had concrete cancer. Okay. It doesn't have concrete cancer.
Councillor, I'm just going to pause you there. I'm going to uphold the point of order in the fact that you've spoken that the council, as in the whole of us, have been misled. So I'm going to uphold that point of order. You have an amendment?
I do.
Can we have the words, please?
That council defer the decision on the multi-purpose sports precinct is point 1. Point 2 is that hold a public meeting to inform a revision of the community and recreational facilities strategy. Point 3, that council staff prepare a report based on that public meeting and the information presented by the community of the logistical constraints relating to the Mittagong site. Oh, sorry, I'm directing the General Manager. I can't do that. So that council directs the General Manager to hold a public meeting. So, yeah. So, and same, that directs the General Manager to prepare. Yeah, and then you can take out council staff, prepare. And number 4, that ideally this review conducted in-house to build local knowledge within current staff members.
Okay. Could I have a seconder for this? Okay, that has lapsed for want of a seconder. We are back on the original motion. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask a question through you of the General Manager. Councillor Russell made some comments. One that I'd like to seek your clarification on, please. She said, we are not working off local knowledge. These are spurious projections. I'm quoting, I've written them down, and we cannot trust the basis of this report. Those three things seem very serious to me. Can you comment on those points, please?
Would you like to comment, General Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor, can I just have the first one?
So sorry. So I'll repeat. So we are not working off local knowledge. These have been, I'm taking grabs. There were spurious projections and we cannot trust the basis of this report.
Thank you, Councillor. In terms of not working off local knowledge, and I think the Director responded to this and the Manager, I apologise, we have undertaken consultation on a range of different projects over time. The purpose of that consultation is to seek community feedback. It is to seek local knowledge and then match that with technical expertise, industry best practice and what we know in terms of the future. So I don't believe that that's being discounted. We do that, and that's the purpose of consultation and engagement. Spurious projections, Mr. Head outlined that the data that they used was based on the data that leisure providers use in terms of looking at their catchments. That would be my response to that. And can't rely on the data, I believe, was your third point.
Cannot trust the basis of this report.
What I would say is that we, in engaging local government project solutions, the team went through a competitive process. We looked for experienced people in this field, not theorists, but people that have actually done the work. And I can't comment on what Councillor Russell feels or thinks, but what I would say is that they're respected within the industry. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone like to speak to this? Would you like your right of reply, Councillor? Oh, you want to speak? Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This has been a difficult decision for me. I do want to acknowledge the extraordinary advocacy from the Mossvale community and especially the Basketball Association. Years of effort, planning and passion have brought us to this point, and that work deserves genuine respect. But as councillors, we have to make decisions grounded in our adopted strategy. The community and recreational facilities strategy points us to where we can serve the greatest number of people, both now and into the future, and increasingly that is in the northern part of the Shire. We also have a responsibility to pursue a model that is deliverable and financially sustainable, and that means building on land already owned by council. I think it's time to draw a line under the difficulties that we have long faced in finding a home for this facility. We need to get on with it. So with some regret for the pain that this decision will cause a part of our community, I believe the right decision, consistent with good governance and with our adopted strategies, is to support the Mittagong site. Having said that, I have an amendment that I would like to propose, which I have sent through to Ms. Lidgard. Have you received that? Thank you. So the text for that amendment is to add a clause, which I believe brings us to point 7. Give me a shout when you're ready. So I'll just read that out while it's being typed in, that we request the General Manager to facilitate structured in-person stakeholder consultation sessions with community sporting groups from across the Shire to inform and support the development of the Mittagong Precinct Master Plan, with outcomes from this engagement to be reported back to Council.
Happy with that? Oh, sorry, the wording's not right there yet.
Yeah, give them a minute.
I'm happy to second that.
Yes,
Councillor
thank you.
Champion.
That's correct.
I'll second that. Would the mover like to accept that as the motion?
Can I ask through you to the General Manager a question before providing an answer?
Sure.
If we could just bring it back on screen for... Thanks very much. General Manager, if we were to adopt the motion as it was, so the original officer's recommendation, what would be the process that would be undertaken for the Mittagong site as regards to consulting other, the various community organisations? What I'm mindful of is if there's an existing process, I don't really want to add something additional to this motion, but I'd be interested in your comments.
Through you, Mr Mayor, what's proposed is what we would do anyway as part of that, and I think Mr Head also made the point when he presented that in preparing any concept or master plan that user groups and key stakeholders are engaged in that process. So it's what we would do moving forward, but I have no issue if council's of a mind to resolve that and add as a point 7.
Okay, would you like to accept?
Yeah, I'll accept it on the basis there's no dates.
Okay, that becomes the motion now without debate. So would anyone like to speak to this? Okay, we'll now put this motion. Foliage? You do get a right to reply, Councillor Kent. Apologies if you'd like to utilise that.
Yes, thanks. This is not an easy decision. I think some other councillors have made this comment. And if this was an easy decision, it would have been resolved well before now. So we've heard from various people. I think Peter Mitchell mentioned it's been in the public domain for about 18 years. I'm aware of it for at least 10 years. And we've had, folks suggesting that we should defer it and do more process. I actually think if we haven't been able to resolve it in 10 to 15 years, then more process is not going to achieve anything. So I commend the motion to the meeting.
Okay, with that, I will now put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. All those against? Councillor Russell, that is carried. We'll ask Councillor Moylan to come back in if we can. Next item is 8.1.3, CTC Robertson Incorporated Funding Agreement. Could I have a mover for this, please? Councillor Duffy, a seconder. Councillor Foley, Councillor Duffy.
I don't want to talk for too long. I just want to commend the work that the CTC Robertson do. And I think the point that Councillor Smith made in the community forum about other villages looking at this model, I think it's really good and I fully support this funding. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now like to speak to this. Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Regarding this item and all the other financial decisions we're making tonight, I maintain that we must make them in context of all of our budget and we cannot be making isolated financial decisions. And so for that reason, I'm going to make an amendment.
Okay. Have the words, please.
So delete 1, 2 and 3, please. And replace with that that the matter regarding funding and a contract for CTC Robertson Incorporated stand deferred, subject to little 1, the AEC Financial Consultants Report be released and considered by councillors and the CTC Robertson Incorporated, semicolon 2. The usual IPART budget process is completed.
Okay, happy with those words?
Yes, and just IPART in capitals. Thank
Could
you.
I get a seconder for this, please? Councillor Russell, I'm sorry, who moved this? Would you like to accept this? Okay, Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan. As I've,
I'm
Mr.
Mr. Mayor.
Moylan, I'm Moylan. Thank you,
getting
Mr.
late.
Mayor. No, don't let the rumour mill start. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope that this isn't eating into my time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, I've talked a lot tonight about financial responsibility, and it remains true for this item as well. This is no reflection on CTC Robertson Incorporated, and I must thank and acknowledge the wonderful work that Ms. Jenner is doing there and for the community. And as a former resident of Robertson and Kangaloon, I know firsthand the work that you do for the community. So thank you very much. This is a matter again about financial responsibility, and I have again some probity concerns. We're making financial decisions. We're spending money without knowing how much we've got to spend. This is like going to an auction, putting your hand up and not knowing how you're going to fulfil on your commitment. 2, if we commit to a formal agreement and we don't know how we're going to perform, that is considered irresponsible. And I wonder if CTC Robertson understands our financial position of $43 million deficit accumulated over the past 4 years and projected for deficit over the next 4 years. Now, some people might say, well, $60,000 really isn't a big amount, but this is about principle. It's not a judgment on amount. And I'll cast back to when a decision was made against funding Repolyfight, and the decision was made against spending $500,000 because it was too much. So we can only start
Councillor, so we have a point of order. Councillor Foley.
Oh, sorry, that's off topic. It's not to do with the CTC funding or the community financial assistance grants.
Okay, I'll hold that. Thank you, Councillor Moylan. Please continue.
So we cannot make decisions with judgments on whether an amount is big or small without seeing it in relation to all other budget items of a budget. This is common sense. Secondly, we still haven't seen in our 18 months of being here all the budget items, all the line items in the budget. And indeed, we can't even identify a budget item when referring to an expenditure for a notice of motion because we haven't seen it. We've seen materials and contracts, we've seen employee spend, but we have not got any more detail than that. So for us to be making this decision without seeing the full picture is not only irresponsible as councillors, but it's irresponsible for CTC Robertson for us to be making this decision on their behalf. Now, lastly, I have probity concerns about entering into a contract in the future. This is a contract for 3 years' time, and we have not understood our full financial position. In 1 month's time, in just 1 month's time, we are expecting to receive the AEC Financial Advisor's full report. Why are we in a rush to make this financial decision in a vacuum? We need to see the full experts' report before we can make sensible decisions. So again, it is not a reflection on CTC Robertson Incorporated. It is a reflection on probity and how we are managing our finances. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kent.
Question to the General Manager through you, Mayor. Could you please, it might be difficult to give the exact numbers, but could you give the net operating results for the last 3 financial years? I seem to recall last year was 36 million, the previous year was 30 something, but it'd be great to get those 3 numbers. Thanks.
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm going to call on our trusty CFO because he would have those figures at his fingertips, Councillor Kent.
Would you be, does the CFO want some time and we might see if someone wants to speak in between? Or have you got him? Okay, sorry. Go.
Just confirming, we've got 2 lots of results. We've got an operating result, including capital revenue. So that is, I've just got to open up my spreadsheet. I'm sorry, I accidentally closed it. Over the past 3 years, was it, Councillor? Just to be...
Yes, thank you.
Okay, won't be a moment. So accumulated, including capital income for the last 3 years, that was about $95 million surplus. And from a deficit perspective, over the last 3 years, it was a $37.5 million deficit.
Okay.
Okay. And do you actually meant for each year?
For each year, did you want me to read each one of them out for each year?
I wanted the net operating result for the last 3 financial years as individual cuts.
Thank you. Okay, 24-25, excluding capital income, was a deficit of $10.9 million. Including capital income was a surplus of $46.9 million. 23-24, excluding capital income, there was a deficit of $4.6 million. And including capital income, it was $37.2 million. Yep, surplus. Thank you. Thank you, General Manager. And in terms of net operating result, excluding capital income, 22-23 was a deficit year of $21.9 million, and that was the year we had the disaster recoveries. And the net operating result, including capital income for that year, was a surplus of $10.8 million.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Can I speak to this item?
Sure. This amendment?
This amendment, yep. Honestly, I'm completely bored with some of the speakers in the public forum, some of the councillors in this room that keep going on about all this debt and how our finances are terrible and we can't do, we've got to basically freeze all decision making till we get more and more reviews. I have to be frank, with operating results of 46 million, 37 million and 10 million in the last 3 years, they speak for themselves. They're not deficits. And to have people keep talking about, oh, this is the result without grants. Well, that's great, except that we live in a world where, there's a large portion of all local government revenue comes through grants. That's the world we live in. So to try and paint for political purposes that we're in dire financial state when we are not is just...
Councillor Mullen, what is your point of order?
Councillor Kent is referring to someone here, some of the councillors, making points for political purposes. I take offence to that.
Okay.
The facts are the facts, and if Councillor Kent disagrees with them, that doesn't mean that they're political and for the wrong reasons.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. That's noted. Councillor Kent.
Councillor, misrepresentation. Councillor Kent spoke to more and more reviews, but the only review that's been referred to here is the AEC Financial Sustainability Review that we've paid $152,000 for.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Councillor Kent.
Yes, so if we go...
Councillor, you have a further Point of order.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And to relevance, Councillor Kent is talking about his boredom level. I don't see how Councillor Kent's entertainment factor is relevant to this very serious business item in front of us.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kent.
Okay, so we'll just go back to the facts then. Yeah, let's talk about facts. The last 3 years, I've read out the numbers of our operating results and the background to those operating results. And the reason I'm giving this is we're being asked to defer a $20,000 a year decision, which the community relies on. They rely on, as Councillor Foley mentioned earlier, when these sort of decisions are made, they rely on being able to forward plan and to keep building the excellent work that we heard from Jenny Kenner in the public forum. So we put this into context with a $46.9 million surplus last financial year. I'm not supportive of deferring a decision on $20,000 a year. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Our community is run by volunteers. To have a vibrant community, we need volunteers. And we have very dedicated people in this community. To give them uncertainty and to not support them is concerning in the extreme. I'm very concerned by the comments that for us to be making this decision is irresponsible, as I quote, or we're making financial decisions in a vacuum. I disagree with that inherently. We have been given ample information over the last 18 months around the financial position. I feel very comfortable with making that, and I'm completely in disagreement with this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor
I would like to speak for Councillor Moylan's amendment. I am disappointed that Councillor Kent takes such a pessimistic view, knowing that he's such an optimist, of robust financial discussion about making sure that we're making prudent decisions grounded in good governance. I've found that on one level, this particular business paper has been curated very well. It has actually brought forward a number of different discretionary funding issues in one paper so we can carefully judge what we're choosing to spend money on. On another level, the timing of where they are in the agenda is not consistent with good governance practice. We haven't adopted our grants policy yet, and yet we're being asked to make these decisions prior to our policy status as an incoming newly elected council after a period of administration. At one point or another, we are going to have to start modelling some good governance practice, and I'm not seeing it here and now. So I am supporting Councillor Moylan's amendment. I support the work of the CTC in Robertson, and I would hope that we're able to support it into the future. However, I would like to have adopted our grants policy first, so we are ensuring equity across the different organisations that we're providing money to, and not just, we don't have any pet favourites, which is what appears that we are doing.
Thank you.
Point of order, I think. We've adopted the policy framework for this report, and that's the community assistant framework.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Champion, you had something to add?
Thank you. I want to speak to this amendment, but also broadly to the attempt to defer multiple items on the basis that they're financial. The argument doesn't stack up to me. Like, for the past 18 months, we've been making financial decisions at almost every meeting. Nothing has changed tonight. If we suddenly say that we can't decide anything until we have a consultant's report from the AEC, we're effectively saying we shouldn't have been making decisions all along, and that would bring this council to a standstill. The budget matters, but it doesn't replace, the budget and the AEC report, I should be clear. They matter, but they don't replace our job to make decisions when they're in front of us.
Yeah, Councillor Champion, I absolutely agree with you. We are making decisions to inform the AEC work, to inform the long-term strategic plan, to inform the outcome of that report, to inform how we move forward. So I absolutely 100% agree with you. Would else like to speak to this? Okay, I'll now put this amendment. All those in favour? Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell, all those against? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. We are now back on the original motion. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, I have probity concerns about the approach we are taking tonight in making isolated financial decisions on the eve of a report which we have paid for from the man under the bonnet, the professional financial advisor we have procured. I also have concerns about making isolated decisions on the eve of the budget process that we go through as part of the regulator's required process. Now, we have indeed made past or been asked to make past financial decisions in isolation, and I have had probity concerns with them as well. The most notable of them would be the out of school hours decision for that childcare centre in Mittagong. We made that decision out of context of all the other budget line items. Secondly, the argument against reallocating
We have a point of order,
funds to the
Councillor
road.
Duffy.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. Point of order. We didn't, the childcare decision was because a contract had to be renewed. We had to make, it wasn't, it just, what Councillor Moylan just said is incorrect. It was not. And we are not making isolated financial decisions. We're making decisions to inform. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Moylan, can I get you to speak to the CTC Robertson specifically, please?
Certainly, Mr Mayor. Thank you very much. We are looking at an isolated financial decision when we are deciding on the finances for CTC Robertson. We've made other isolated or been asked to make other isolated financial decisions, and I have had probity concerns around them as well. One of them would be the reallocation of funds to roads, and the argument against that was we've got a budget process coming up. So it seems the argument for not reallocating money to roads when the opportunity came up, because we're just about to finish our budget process, is not the same argument that we're seeing here today. Now, what we are looking at here is not just a financial decision, we're looking at a contract. Two parties being bound by a contract. So even the argument, Mr Mayor, of don't worry, this will all go part of the bigger budget and it'll all go on public exhibition, that fails in comparison to the legalities we're talking here. CTC has not been on a contract before, and now we are rushing to get them onto a contract. If we decide against, or someone during the public exhibition period decides against this financial decision, we're already bound to a contract. So for those reasons, probity-wise, I'm very concerned about making this isolated financial decision. I think it should be part of the broader context of finances, part of our budget process, and after we've got the financial advisor's review, so that it's equitable to both CTC Robertson Incorporated and Council and all of the other community organisations we're referring to tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I have a question of the General Manager through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Moylan repeatedly said she has probity concerns. That to me is bordering on bringing Council into disrepute. That's a very serious accusation. Could I ask, does the General Manager have any probity concerns with any of the decisions we've made so far?
General Manager.
It's a very broad statement. What I would say is we're following the budget process, and I would just like to clarify, Councillor Moylan's mentioned IPART a couple of times. IPART does not have a role to play in Council's budgeting process. IPART's role is to consider if and when a council submits for a special rate variation, they assess that, but they do not have a role in the normal process. There may be some confusion between IPART and IPNR, which is the Integrated Planning and Reporting Framework, which is the Office of Local Government's budget process. So if Councillor Moylan is aware of any probity issues, has the avenues to raise those details. But no, we're running a budget process in accordance with OLG, Office of Local Government, and also we work through the ARIC, the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee, and they provide a level of assurance to the council as well, and Councillor Kent is also part of that.
Thank you. Councillor Russell.
Through you, Mayor, to the General Manager, in which of the 5 categories of the Council's Community Financial Assistance Program is this being funded through, noting that the top amount of funding through that program is for community event sponsorship, which is $500 to $10,000 in our adopted policy?
General Manager.
The Director Corporate Strategy and Resourcing, Ms Jones. Thank you.
You're getting confused now, Michael. Councillor, it is the annual assistance program, and that is actually articulated in the report. So what we're proposing is the total amount will be reduced, available, will be reduced by this amount every year if we resolve to fund this in this way tonight.
So through you, Mayor, to the General Manager, so potentially by extending it beyond the $10,000, we're limiting what other organisations would be able to access in terms of financial assistance grants?
So what the Director just stated was that we have a pool of money. What's before you and what's set out in the report, pages 25 flowing over to 26, is that amount would be taken from that larger pool to formalise an arrangement that's been in place for a number of years, but also in recognition of the value that CTC Robertson provides and the leveraging of Council's funding to deliver a much greater outcome. Again, it's before the Council tonight to make a decision on.
Okay, next slide, please. Councillor Foley.
I'd like to speak for the recommendation. I'm very comfortable with the information that we've been given to make this decision tonight. All organisations need certainty to work effectively and strategically, and a grant fund for 3 years to the wonderful CTC in Robertson allows the community group to really work towards long-term goals, which will translate into value for council. We already see that the CTC has 50 volunteer hours per week, and this has a measured economic impact on communities. They provide services to meet community needs, build relationships and community networks. They're supporting local businesses and other organisations. All the information is in their AGM. In their report. So what this demonstrates is that they're connecting people socially, professionally, through learning and engagement. In particular, they focus on children and young people. Again, this is a partnership that works for council. We don't fund the capital works or maintenance on the building, we're just funding operations. And I think that this will work really successfully for us, especially if we can give them the certainty to continue into the future.
Thank you. Councillor Russell.
Through you, Mayor, I need help understanding, if I look at Council's website, it says almost $160,000 in funding is available for the current round of Community Financial Assistance Program grants, and that this is all remaining open until the 31st of March this year. And then it says that there's 5 categories. There's community grants, Kickstarter grants, small halls activation grants, community event sponsorship and destination event sponsorship. And to be eligible, applicants will need to demonstrate clear community, which obviously CTC does. But they are our adopted guidelines. There is not the provision in our current grant assistance policy to be giving $20,000 to one organisation. Should we be amending our policy before making this decision, therefore? Because if other community groups have put in grants in good faith, in grant applications in good faith, but there's a limited funding pool, then we're not being equitable in how we're distributing our financial assistance grants, which was a problem during before administration.
Thank you. Okay.
That was a question through you to the General Manager. How is this being applied?
Councillor Russell, I'm just going to remind you so we don't have that again. Questions are to be put succinctly and to the point. So I know you spoke about that. Just for future questions, succinctly. General Manager, I think, did you get a...
Sorry, Mr Mayor. As I said, we've brought this report, Councillor, to Council to formalise an arrangement that's been in place. It's in the report in terms of how it would be funded. In the report, we've also said the proposal supports the delivery program outcomes that Council has set, going to, I believe, Councillor Champion's point earlier. We have a strategy and we've linked that. We see the benefit. The officers have formed a recommendation based on that alignment in terms of our people, our creative and always learning, our people we come together to connect and celebrate, and leadership we deliver our future together.
Okay. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Moyne, have you already spoken to this?
No, I spoke to the amendment, Mr Mayor.
Go ahead.
I, again, am concerned with this approach to our finances. It is a fact we are in, the financial advisor has said on your podcast, Mr Mayor, that he thinks we have a structural deficit issue. Councillor Kent chooses to look at the figure including grants. I choose to look at the very bottom line that is excluding grants and is a representation on how we are managing as an operation. And it is very important that we are crystal clear that we are in deficit and we need to follow the usual processes when making financial decisions.
Okay, I got a point of order, Councillor Farrell. What's your point of order?
I think Councillor Kent pointed out fairly clearly that we're not in deficit. Councillor Moylan keeps referring to this deficit like the council's not running properly, and this is continual, and I think it's out of order.
Okay, thank you. Look, my ruling on that is two things can exist. Well, there is a position pre-grants and there is a position after grants. And my comment would be that Councillor is in no dire state financially. And to that, I think we're going to move on now. Councillor...
All right, can I speak to a misunderstanding and misrepresentation, Mr Mayor?
Go ahead.
It's very concerning to me that some councillors aren't aware that we are in deficit. The financial advisor from the ASC...
So, Councillor, what is your misrepresentation?
So, Councillor Farrell said that we're not in deficit. That is a misunderstanding.
And, okay, so look, I'll clarify it just for people at home. When we report a bottom line, and that's why you're hearing some councils talk about a surplus, because that includes all of our income plus our grants that we receive. Councillor Kent's argument was that because we always do receive grants, essentially why do we imagine a world without them, if you don't mind me putting words in your mouth there. And what Councillor Moylan is referring to is part of our reporting obligations is to remove capital grants from that to show our position that would show a world in what we look like if we never received grants. So both councillors are talking about the same set of financials and they are reading a different line item. One is a reporting obligation, one is a real-time look at it. Look, we've debated for this quite a long time. I think we're going to move on to another speaker, and then Councillor Russell, have you spoken to this yet?
No.
Okay. I'm just knowing that we are bumping up to 7:30. We can go to 8, but we'll be reconvening at 9 a.m. if we don't finish. So keep going, please, Councillor Russell.
I am concerned that we are not applying our community financial assistance program policy to this agenda item. I am concerned that a staff recommendation has come forward that is inconsistent with the policy at a time when it is actually open for community submissions at this point.
We have a point of order, Councillor.
Yeah, Councillor Russell said that we're not applying the community assistance framework that we adopted. We are. It was exhibited, and it was clear that the framework dealt with these proposals by exception with a report to council, which is clearly stipulated in the report that was in the agenda. That it was so clear, all the information that is being said was in the report.
Okay.
I read it and I understood it.
Okay, thank you for clarifying, Councillor.
I would like us to all acknowledge the number of community groups in the Southern Highlands who do the same sort of good work as is being done by CTC Robertson. You know, look at Mossvale Community Gardens, who had to come cap in hand to not have to pay rent on their space. And they deliver lots of things for our community strategic plan as well. I would like to see that we actually are consistent across the board in how we support different organisations in different regions, and I don't believe we're there yet. So I cannot... and to Councillor Champion's point about making financial decisions, I do feel like at this point, when we have started looking at where we truly are at in terms of our finances, and we are aware that any decisions that we make will inform whether we do or do not have a special rate variation, will inform, if we do, how large that is. I think that, yes, I am taking a step back at each and every point and taking more time to consider whether now is the time that I want to be making decisions years into the future. So it's not that I don't want to make decisions that have financial grounding, it's that I want the quality of those decisions to be in line with what I know our community can afford.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kent?
Can we please put this motion?
I think that was the end of speakers anyway, so who had the right of reply? Councillor Duffy, do you want to use your right of reply?
I kind of used it before, but just to say that that we have a community assistance framework that we adopted, and that all these proposals are dealt by exception with the report to council, which is in the policy. That was also stipulated in the report, and that I would like to put this.
Okay. I'll now put this motion. All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Russell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. All those against? Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell. That is carried. Item 8.1.4, Illawarra Academy of Sport funding. Can I have a mover for this, please? Councillor Foley, a seconder. Councillor Duffy, Councillor Foley. We're up to 8.1.4, Illawarra Academy of Sport. Okay, Councillor Foley, would you like to speak?
I'll speak briefly. This funding is going to help young people to achieve their sporting goals. I think that this is a great thing that we can do as council. It has a run-on effect to facilities and coaching within the Highlands, and if we're trying to encourage excellence in any endeavour, then I think this is a good funding to be pursuing.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to make an amendment replacing 1 and 2 with the following. That the matter regarding the funding and contract for the Illawarra Academy of Sport stand deferred subject to little 1, the AEC Financial Consultants Report.
Councillor, is this the same wording as your last one? If we could maybe copy and paste?
Yes.
Can we, is that possible, or is that a bit too hard? Okay. And just, I'm assuming because we have a few more financial ones, and I sort of sense a theme here. Is it, are you, look, you don't have to say anything, but are you planning on doing this for a few of the financial items?
Yes.
Mr Mayor.
Look, it might be out of governance. Is there any way we can bundle, I mean, if it's appropriate, bundle up Councillor Moylan's deferrals of the financial items? We have to still deal with them independently? Okay. Okay, all good. So I'm just thinking for expediency. And Councillor Moylan, I mean, again, up to you. Just out of respect, I think you've made your point very clear that what you're trying to do here. I asked that I'm only asking if you could, if we could reduce the speaking briefly, if that's okay, on each item, just to stop constant repetition. You don't have to, but I'm just asking. Councillor Smith.
Can I ask just?
Sorry.
I just have a question of governance, if I can. I'm a little bit confused. Is Councillor Moylan not on the committee or board of the Sports Institute, and would that not be the same conflict as I had and had to leave the chamber? I'm just confused.
It's not for councillors or us to manage other people's conflicts. So it's up to each individual councillor to manage that conflict. So I'm sorry, I'll get Councillor Moylan to double check this wording.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And in point number 2, the usual IPNR budget process is completed.
Okay, can I get a seconder for this? Councillor Russell, who moved this? Sorry, Councillor Foley, do you accept this?
No.
Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, I have probity concerns about the way we are approaching our finances, and we are not considering the overall budget. We are not making these decisions in a vacuum. We need to see them in relation to all the other budget items. I particularly have concern with this one because we have got a very long-standing relationship with Illawarra Academy of Sport. So I think for their benefit and ours, we need to incorporate it into the usual IPNR budget process, and we need to wait for the AEC financial advisors report to come back so that we can make these decisions impartially and in relation to other financial items.
Okay. Look, I'm going to move procedural motion. We're going to have another 5-minute break. I know it's getting late and I know we've got a lot to get through, but just have a bit of a break. If I can get a seconder. Councillor Foley, all those in favour? It's carried, not unanimously. The exception was Councillor Moylan. Okay, carried. Thank you. Moylan was, sorry, we reconvened at 7:05. Councillor Moylan was checking the words, I believe, and we had a seconder from Councillor Russell, and we did do, who moved this one? And you didn't accept. Did you accept? You didn't accept. So, Councillor Moylan, did you speak to this one? I'm sorry, just trying to catch myself up. You did speak to this one? Okay, so now we're opening it to any other speakers on this. Okay.
I'd like to speak against the amendment.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Duffy?
I would also like to speak against this amendment with reasons already stated.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Russell?
I would like to acknowledge that all of the decisions that we do make at this time, once again, are going to inform things that we don't have all the information, decisions that we don't have all the information on yet. I was concerned to hear last night in relation to people being asked about what services we're delivering and how satisfied our community are about what services council provides, that it was only halfway through our council community satisfaction survey that they were actually informed that, by the way, all of the answers you give will inform a special rate variation. To me, that wasted our community's time when they wanted to make those decisions informed. They wanted to provide informed answers to any community satisfaction survey. I was also concerned to hear about how they were being asked about...
Councillor, I'm going to pull you back on topic to the what's before us, please.
Whether we're satisfied with what we're providing with a scale that was heavily weighted towards being satisfied and not actually a critical assessment of the services. So in regards to all of these decisions that we're making tonight, I would like to say that I don't have all of the information on hand to be making these decisions, to Councillor Moylan's point. And I'm sorry that we have to repeat saying this, but we need to go on record for our community and for accountability to our community. I would have liked to just be able to do this tick and flick this meeting too, but that's not the way how good governance works. We have to make well-informed and considered decisions, and I can't at this point.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to move a procedural motion to put the amendment.
Okay, we have 2 for, 2 against. So we're going to vote on putting the amendment. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Duffy. All those in favour of putting this amendment? That is Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Russell, Councillor Smith, Councillor Patrick. All those against? This is the procedure motion. Okay, that's been carried. So we'll now put the amendment. All those in favour? Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell. All those against? Councillor Champion. Sorry, apologies. We're putting the amendment. This is 4. Sorry. We are putting the amendment which was to defer. So saying all those 4, we had Councillor Moylan and Councillor Russell. Now we're saying all those against. As Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. Now we're back at the original motion. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will take my time on this point, Mr Mayor, because I consider financial responsibility a key responsibility as a councillor, and I don't think these things need to be rushed. We are dealing with ratepayers' money. We are holding ratepayers' money in trust for them. They are entrusting us to make the right decisions the right way. So again, I have probity concerns about the approach we are taking with these isolated financial decisions. We are not seeing them in context with the rest of our budget. We have the AEC Financial Consultants report only a month away, and he will advise us on what we need to get our finances back on track. And we've also just about to commence the IPNR usual budget process. So I don't understand or support why any of these financial decisions are made on the eve of those two important things. Now, with regards to some of the examples given, there was a decision that came before us last year on the reallocation of money to roads. It wasn't a spend decision, it was a reallocation of money to roads. And the debate said that that was reckless to reallocate our existing
Councillor,
money to
I'm going to
roads.
ask you to stick to the topic of Illawarra Academy of Sports funding agreement, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Now, I would like to refer to Councillor Smith's comment made with regards to financial decisions, where Councillor Smith said quite wisely that we need to use our heads.
Sorry, Councillor, is this in
not our
relation to
hearts.
this item? Did Councillor Smith make those comments in relation to this item?
Mr Mayor, it was regarding the spend for repoly and the
Okay, so this has
reasons
nothing
why.
to do with this item and it's not comments made by, so I'm going to overrule that. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Duffy.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I haven't had my full 5 minutes.
That down, proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We have heard the AEC financial advisor in your podcast, Mr Mayor, say that this council is in a structural deficit. That means that we need to take drastic steps to get back into surplus. And we need to wait for that professional's advice and we need to make these financial decisions, as I said, with the full context.
So we have a point of order, Councillor Smith.
I'm a little. Is Councillor Moylan speaking to this topic? It sounds like a repeat of before. It doesn't. I'm not hearing anything about the Illawarra Academy of Sport. So just checking on that.
I think you might be talking to the reasons for the deferral amendment that didn't get up, saying you're sort of justifying. We're asking about the actual funding. If you could stick back to that topic, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I note that this item, as with the other 6 financial decisions we're making tonight, are under the heading financial sustainability. So I find my point about financial sustainability wholly relevant, not only to this item on IAS, but also under this heading in the agenda. So again, we cannot be making isolated decisions on finances. I don't know why, and I'm very curious as to why these 6 have been pulled out and that they can't wait for the IPNR budget process. And I don't understand why these 6 have been pulled out and they can't wait for that comprehensive report from the AEC financial advisor. So again, I'm very reluctant to enter into a contract before we have all of the financial information before us, and I have definite probity concerns about this approach.
Thank you, Councillor. Would anyone else like to speak to the original motion? Okay, with that, I will now. Who moved it? Would you like to write a reply?
No.
Okay, I now put this motion. All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. All those against? Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell. Item 8.1.5, Aquatics Facility Management Tender Evaluation Report. We have a mover in Councillor Duffy, a seconder in Councillor Kent. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to reserve my right to speak on this one.
Okay, anyone else like to speak on this? Councillor Champion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't be supporting this motion as it stands. Privatising services like this often come with real trade-offs. We see pressure on wages and conditions, more casualisation, less investment in staff. In aquatic centres, that matters because these are skilled roles, often filled by young people gaining qualifications, experience and a pathway to meaningful work. When those conditions erode, so does the quality and continuity of the service. We also risk losing direct control over pricing, programming and access, shifting from delivering community outcomes ourselves to try and enforcing them through a contract. And we've seen elsewhere that this doesn't always deliver the outcomes we'd hoped for. Inner West Council ultimately reversed a similar decision to the one on the paper today and brought their services back in-house. So rather than locking ourselves into a model that we may later regret, the responsible course is to properly test the alternative. For that reason, I would like to move an amendment, which I have sent through to Ms Lidgard. And just while that's coming up, I'll read it out. Clause 1 notes that aquatic facilities are core community infrastructure and that retaining direct council control may better support accessibility, affordability and community outcomes. 2, declines to award the tender at this time. 3, directs the General Manager to prepare a detailed in-house service delivery plan. And 4, receives a further report within 3 months comparing that model against the tender submissions so we may make a fully informed decision in the best interests of our community.
Okay, could I get a seconder for this, please? Councillor Russell. Who was the mover? I'm sorry, I'm losing track of the mover. Councillor Duffy, do you accept this? Okay, Councillor Champion. Yep.
Thank you. I've
sorry,
spoken
apologies.
to the...
I just want governance. Just want to say something.
Apologies. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Dr Lidgard. Yep. Direct negative.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I thought. Let me rewind that. Because it's a direct negative, it's a foreshadowed motion. Is that correct?
Okay.
Are you happy to foreshadow that?
Absolutely.
So then,
thank you.
And we haven't done many of these. So at the resolution of this one, if we resolve in the affirmative, then the foreshadow disappears. Is that correct? And if we foreshadow in the negative, then if it's lost, then we go to the shadow. Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Russell.
Could I propose, before we lose that foreshadowed motion, could I propose an amendment that council defers
Sorry, Councillor. We can't add a.
Wait, no, I'm amending it, but I'm using Councillor Champion's text.
But it's Councillor Champion's foreshadow.
Yes.
We will work on the foreshadow when we get to it. So you can
no,
still amend it.
I'm actually going to. What I'm doing is I'm proposing an amendment that council defers the decision, which is not a direct contradiction. It's a deferral, but I'm using the basis of Councillor Champion's wording. If you can bring that up on the board.
Okay, so we're leaving the foreshadow there.
And
then we're going back to the body of the motion.
No, I want to use the basis of Councillor Champion's text.
To do your amendment on the main motion.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yep, I understand.
Thank you.
Well,
so my amendment would be just instead of declines, it's defers, because then it's not a direct negative, but we are just simply asking for more information so that council notes those two things and then defers the decision to award it at this time and directs the General Manager to prepare a detailed in-house. Yep.
Governance. Do you have any commentary on this? Defers to board. Here, do we have a seconder? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, who moved this? We don't accept that. Okay, can Councillor Russell speak to her amendment, please?
Thank you. The details in one word, it often comes down to that. I was reviewing the old contract just before coming into council session, which it would have actually been ideal if councillors had been given an opportunity to review with the confidential business papers so we had adequate time to consider what had been done in the past. I am concerned that in the former contract it was, as Councillor Champion suggests, heavily weighted towards the contractor. It was in not a good contract, was actually part of the judgment from the staff who were with me. Admittedly, it wasn't a good contract because we, based on on projections from the company, we had, they had locked in bonuses, and council was just going to pay any deficit. This is not how we should be doing our contracts. We don't have a contract for councillors haven't had a chance to view the new contract. We want to be making informed decisions. I think Councillor Champion's wording is excellent, and I have a question for, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Champion. Could you please provide some more information on that case study of the other council that you found moved services back in-house?
Okay, so that's the end of that speaking time. You've been asked a question. Do you want to answer that, or would you like to speak to it? Up to you. You can just speak. You can just speak to it if you don't.
Yeah, if it's okay, I'll combine those things. I'll
go
speak
ahead.
and I'll answer
Sure.
your question at the same time, Councillor Russell. Look, I believe that the report that has been provided to us suggests that outsourcing the two remaining pools that are currently served directly through council, which is Bundanoon and Bowral, could save us $2.08 million over the course of the contract, which is a lot of money. It seems, to me, I question the ability of us to, allow me to say, that is a lot of money, and with it, I assume, come cuts to services, cuts, different ways of delivering things. I don't see how we could possibly have done that ourselves. And I'm also concerned about the competitive tension should that service provider no longer support our contract. If we ever wanted to come back into house, I think it would be very difficult to do. And I really am concerned about the provision of services to the community and also the impacts on people's jobs. Councillor Russell, in response to your question about the Inner West, I believe that I can provide you with more detail about this, but off the top of my head, it was privatised. The General Manager might be able to speak to this more clearly even, but it was privatised several years ago, and then within the last term of local government, it was brought back in-house, the provision of services within their pools, for the reason that they were primarily concerned about the impacts it was having on workers' pay and conditions.
Thank you. Councillor Kent.
Question to the General Manager, please, through you, Mayor. Councillor Champion expressed concerns that the financial savings outlined in the staff report may involve cuts to services. Can I just get some clarification around that? I think we've got two tenderers tendering against the same conditions.
General Manager.
And just be good to understand whether it does involve cuts to services. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll ask the Manager Business and Property to explain what actually is in the scope, but it doesn't include cuts to services. But Ms. Parks, are you good to?
Thank you, through you. The new contract and the tender process actually lent heavily into providing additional community support. So in terms of additional programming and additional services. So really leveraging the assets more than what we can do internally. So that's why there's a reduction.
Okay. Councillor Kent.
Can I just speak to the...
Yep.
I don't support this amendment for a few reasons. The first one is that the tender encapsulates the Mossvale indoor facility just over the road here and two outdoor pools. They're almost like, they're quite different facilities, and to suggest, I'm not comfortable with suggesting that we would take the Mossvale facility, which has been, which is a very, it's a large and complex facility that's very different to the outdoor pools. It's a pool, but it's also a gym. It's a complex operation, one of its kind in the Shire, and it requires specialist, specialist companies to run it, and it's a pretty common thing that those sort of facilities are run by the kind of providers that were that did tender for this work. So I see Aquatics Centre, which has always been outsourced, potentially because we might have trouble actually sourcing people with those specialist skills in the area. That's always been outsourced, and I think for good reason. I understand some concern about the two outdoor pools, but really the reports made it pretty clear that as an operating council, we lack the economies of scale. Really, it's a little bit like the USH service end of last year. We lack the economies of scale to run those things in terms of compliance or the hiring on seasonal approaches. So I'm supportive of actually putting this all into one specialist contract where, rather than the council doing bits of the service, we hire a provider that is experienced, long experienced in providing the lot. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak to this? Okay, I will now put this amendment. All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Russell, all those against, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Moreland, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. And that is lost. We're now back at the main motion. Would anyone like to speak to this? Councillor Duffy.
I would like to now speak to this. I would like to speak for this. I want to be really clear that this decision isn't about cutting jobs, and it's not about reducing the service of our community that our community receives. It's about making strategic financial decisions. This is simply renewing the contract that has been through probity and due process. The only change is that it has included the running of the seasonal pools of Bowral and Bundanoon. I worked as a seasonal kiosk assistant and lifeguard at our pools when I was a teenager, and it was a fantastic job, especially during university holidays. Those kind of opportunities still exist. The work still needs to be done and the pools still need to be staffed. In many ways, it's simply a different badge on the shirts. Pools are a discretionary service and an important community asset. They run at a loss, and we accept that because of the net public benefit. We should try something new with our seasonal pools to try and lessen the budget burden. To quote Albert Einstein, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome. Council will still have oversight of the service and responsibility for ensuring it meets the standards our community expects, but we also have a responsibility to look carefully at our discretionary spending and identify financial savings where we can, provided it doesn't compromise the integrity, but most importantly, the safety of the service.
Thank you. Councillor Kent.
I'd like to speak in support of this motion, and I concur with Councillor Duffy's observations around seasonal employment for young people. I probably don't spend enough time at the Moss Vale Aquatics Centre, but when I do, I see the same faces, children, late school age children, the same faces that I see in Bundanoon and Bowral. Sometimes in the summertime, I see those faces in wintertime operating out here at Moss Vale. So I support what Councillor Duffy says, that it's not going to lead to locals not being able to gain employment while acting as lifesavers. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have got some probity concerns again with this. I would like to make an amendment. And the wording is to delete 1 to 5 and replace it with the matter regarding the aquatics facilities.
Is this same wording again, Councillor?
No.
Different wording? Okay.
Management.
I'm just going to pause you there, Councillor. We're just bumping up to 7:30, so I'll move a procedural motion and we continue to 8. Could I get a seconder? Councillor Smith. All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Moreland, Councillor Russell, Councillor Smith, Councillor Patrick. All those against? Councillor Kent. That is carried. We'll go on to 8. Sorry, Councillor Moreland, as you were.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan. Oh my gosh. I keep saying that.
It's it's getting a bit weird now. There you go. It's tired. I just said it's tired. It's late.
3 times late.
Oh, where's your husband? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The matter regarding the Aquatics Facility Management Tender Evaluation Report. Stand deferred. Subject to 1, a report provided back to council justifying why there were only 2 bidders in the tender. And semicolon 2, a reconsideration of extending the tender to any other bidders available.
Okay, happy with that wording. Can I get a sec? Oh, sorry. I'm just going to hear from governance. Is it a lawful motion? Okay, it's not a lawful motion, so we'll disallow that, councillor. So we'll go back to the body of the motion. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Russell.
Through you, Mayor, to the General Manager, what specific issue made it unlawful?
General Manager.
Dr. Lidgard or Mr. Kuzmanowski? Mr. Kuzmanowski, I assume it's in relation to the tender, regulation? Thank you, Mr. Kuzmanowski.
Correct. We, through our procurement policy, we go through a process of inviting everyone out through tenders, so specifically to go and reach out to people who cause probity issues through that procurement process, and may also jeopardise the existing tenderers if we do go back out to market and them not inviting to re-tender again.
Okay, thank you. I'll uphold that.
Thank you. Through you, sorry, I would like to propose an amendment to section 2 of the motion. So that prior to the award of the contract, the contract be brought to councillors for their further consideration and approval prior to execution, and then you can delete the rest of that.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Moylan.
I have a concern with this, that it's operational and not in the remit of councillors.
General, do you have some commentary on that?
I actually will ask Ms Jones to respond, but I agree with Councillor Duffy being operational.
Councillor Duffy, you're correct. This is an operational matter. So what the report recommends is the strategy and the direction for the running of the pools, and then the dealings of the contract are then delegated to the General Manager and then on to staff.
Point of information, if it wasn't, because of the provisions under the Local Government Act, because there are council staff jobs involved, this actually has to be, this can be a decision of council prior to us delegating it.
Councillor, when I'm speaking, not to speak over the chair, I'm sorry. Governance, can I just get a ruling on this, please?
I agree, it's operational.
So it's not a motion we can accept?
No.
Okay, we're not accepting this motion. I will uphold that.
Through you.
We're going back to the main motion. Would anyone like to speak to this?
Through you, Mayor. A question through you, Mayor, to the General Manager. Is it not the case that because this involves employee, the reason that provision 2 is currently in there is because councillors can request further information prior to it becoming operational.
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Ms Jones.
Councillor, the reason why the reference to clause 42 of the local government award is in there is because when we make decisions that impact staff through a workplace change, we have to undertake 28 days of consultation. That's it. That's why it's there.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager, is it not the case as well that it requires a decision of the council to do that, and that the council can delay the decision until they have all the information they need to make a well-considered and informed decision?
General Manager?
I believe, Mr Mayor, you ruled on the question.
Yeah, look, I have ruled on it. We're going to move on. Is anyone like to speak to this?
Through me,
Councillor,
Mayor.
we've ruled on it and we're going to move on.
Well, yes, I'm asking, is it currently in the delegations of the General Manager to finalise and execute this contract documentation?
General Manager?
Through you, Mr Mayor, as with all tenders, as what's before the council, the recommendation is to accept a tender if that's the council's desire. And then that enacts my delegation. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, would anyone like to speak to this?
Yes, I
Councillor?
would. I'm speaking to it.
Thank you.
I would like to see councillors able to be confident that the direction that we are taking in regards to our resourcing strategy is one that's more strategic than is currently being pursued. I commend Councillor Champion's foreshadowed motion and believe that we are losing fundamental community sense of ownership to contractors again and again and again. We have these beautiful local outdoor pools that have been built and the community has fundraised for them, and then in a blink of an eye, all of a sudden we decide that it's going to look different, it's going to come over, it's going to be a contract from out of area, way out of area. Both of the tenders offered were from people out of area coming and taking over our community assets that are a source of such pride for our community, when all we could be doing is just declining this at this point and doing a really thorough cost-benefit analysis of bringing all of those facilities back in-house. I cannot agree with Councillor Kent's contentions that we don't have those skills in this area. Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Kent, we certainly do have
Councillor Russell,
all of those
I'll just ask you
potential
to take
skills.
your motion out of the response, please. Thank you.
I'll
uphold the order.
It is a point that we are a highly resourceful and capable community, and we can do whatever we like if we apply the willpower and the resourcefulness that we know is within our community and we work in partnership with our community. I don't believe that we have to outsource to do that. We don't. And I am saddened that this is the path that is so easily taken in making decisions like this. And having seen the previous contract, I do have, even if the new one is best practice, having seen the old one, we didn't make money off that. I tell you what, we didn't make cost savings off that. It cost us a lot. So I cannot support this in its current state, and I really hope that all of you, well, you'll do what you do, won't you? But it's a sad day for our pools if this gets up.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to make an amendment to delete 1 to 5. And if I could ask you to wait for me to finish the amendment, Mr Mayor. It looks similar to the start of the last one, but it is quite different. That the matter regarding the Aquatics Facilities Management tender stand deferred and then until a report council provides back, the General Manager provides back to council a report justifying why there are only 2 bidders.
Councillor, this is the same amendment we had before.
No. So,
Councillor, I'm
Mr.
going to
Mayor-
rule. I'm going to rule that we're not going to proceed down this path with this. That is my ruling. That is my ruling, and that's the end of it. We're going to move on.
Mr. Mayor, may I speak to a misunderstanding?
Councillor, that is my ruling, and we're going to move on. Councillor Duffy.
I just, I don't know what it is, but I'm just concerned because last time this came up, our CFO said that we couldn't do it. So I'm just concerned.
Look, I'm going to rule that we're going to continue on. Does anyone else want to speak to the main motion? Councillor Moylan, you do?
Yes, I have another amendment.
Sorry, Councillor, have you already spoken? I got another amendment.
Yes, another amendment. So a final point, is it point 5?
Everything else staying the same and changing point 5?
Yes, point 6. That council include in the contract with any new supplier a requirement for them to conduct a community forum within the first 2 months of the contract term, inviting residents to provide feedback and suggestions on what they would like to see at their pools.
General Manager, considering there's already a scope, how does that fit in with this amendment, in your opinion?
Mr. Mayor, if I can ask Ms. Parks, the manager, what your thoughts are on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. In the actual tender responses, the community consultation was part of that, and in the transition plan is community consultation when we go through that transition process in terms of what the community would like to see and the programming and stuff like that. So that's already built in.
Just could I get a ruling from governance? Is it a retrospectively putting this in acceptable or not? And I can make a ruling on that? Okay. I'm going to make a ruling that this is an unnecessary addition. So we're going to go back to the body of the motion. Councillor Duffy.
Can we put the motion, please?
I believe we can. So we'll put a procedural motion to put the motion first. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Kent. All those in favour of putting the motion. Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. All those against. Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell. Okay. Who had the right of reply? Councillor Duffy, do you have your right of reply?
Yep, very briefly. I am able to make a very confident decision. There seems to be the same councillors that are saying that they aren't confident in being able to make a decision. The comment is constantly asked for a business case.
Councillor Moylan.
Councillor Duffy accused those councillors in the minority who are crusading for financial responsibility to being capable of making decisions, and I take offence to that.
Thank you. Look, we're not.
I didn't name any councillors.
Councillor Duffy, I'll just call you to order. We're not going to have a back and forward here, please. It's a very formal meeting, and we're going to continue formally, please. Would you like to
Noted.
finish?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so I would like to confidently, with all the information provided, make this decision.
Okay, we'll now put this motion. All those in favour? Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. All those against? Councillor Champion, Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell. That is carried. Item 8.1.6, while we landfill Aboriginal Land Council compensation. Can I have a mover for this, please? Councillor Kent, a seconder. Councillor Smith, Councillor Kent.
I support the officer's recommendation.
Okay, anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
Question, Mr Mayor, through you to the General Manager. Were the local First Nations people consulted as part of this motion?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, with Ms Jones or Ms Parks? Oh, Mr Robinson. Mr McAllister, sorry. We collaborate in the organisation and we work across the organisation, so there are many people that have had input into this. Mr McAllister, over to you.
Okay. Through you, General Manager, yes. In simple terms, consultation with both the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council and the Illawarra Local Aboriginal Land Council, I had to get that right, occurred throughout 2024 and 2025. The matter was considered by the joint board with the Illawarra Local Aboriginal Land Council in September, and the board resolved to support the works.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager, I'm particularly interested in the local First Nations people, not those of the Illawarra Land Council.
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the Illawarra Lands Council are the recognised legal entity that we need to negotiate with. I don't know if Ms Jones or Ms Parks would like to add to that, but that's the process we need to adhere to.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Duffy.
I would just like to speak against the officer's recommendation on this one. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, would else like to speak? Okay, with that, would you like a right of reply, Councillor Kent?
No.
Okay, I'll now put this motion. All those in favour? Councillor Chairman, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Russell, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. All those against? Councillor Moylan, and are you against Councillor Farrell? Yes. Yep, you are. Okay. That is carried. Item 8.1.7, Incoming Grants Management Policy, draft for adoption. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Duffy. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Smith. Councillor Duffy.
I would just like to speak for this. It strengthens governance and consistency, and it ensures that the grants align with our strategic priorities.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Russell.
Thank you to Councillor Duffy's point about good governance and ensuring that our decisions are aligned with our key focus areas. It will be nice to see that we start really prioritising in line with whether they're in our identified key focus areas or not, because I'm being challenged at the moment that I find a lot of our decision making is not in line with our key focus areas when we are in such a critical situation with our budget.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Okay. Would you like to write a reply? Okay. I'll now put this motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 8.2.1, Proposed Climate Change and Natural Hazards State Environmental Planning Policy, draft submission. Would someone like to move this? Councillor Champion. Anyone like to second this? Councillor Duffy. Councillor Champion.
I'd just like to say I'm in favour of this motion. The draft submission is a meaningful contribution to a very important review of state planning law. Climate change isn't an abstract policy debate for us. As I'm sure we're all aware, we've had lots of discussions about natural disaster and the impacts that it's had on our services and our budget and our staff and community facilities. That's why this shift towards a risk-based approach in planning is so important, and I want to thank the staff for the work that's gone into this submission.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager. Will this further delay our DA processing times?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, to Mr McCabe.
It's unknown, through you, General Manager. It will be statewide, so everyone's in the same rule book, I suppose. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Russell.
Through you, Mayor, a question to the General Manager. When was the last time that we actually applied our sort of passive solar design principles to DA approvals?
Mr Mayor, we'll take that on notice.
Okay,
Thank
take
you.
on notice. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Russell.
I would firstly like to commend the officers on the excellent work they've done in this report, particularly around the bushfire issues that we face in this region, and making sure that we're being very careful in how we apply approvals based on those principles. I think that we really have refined that process well. I am concerned that we are not applying the SEP as it stands in regards to our approvals. So often I see that it's weighted on whether a house is facing the street instead of whether it is actually facing the north, which is a mindset that I think as an area we want to be getting out of, and it's actually by law we should be applying that principle. It's in those state laws. So I'm commending this this motion, and just noting that currently we're seeing that houses are approved and dwellings are approved seemingly without applying the existing legislation, when I see little houses with tiny windows facing the north and massive windows facing the other area. So I'm glad, thank you for taking that on notice, because we need to look at this. If everything's facing the street as a principle, then we're not applying the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Okay, would you like to write a reply? Okay, I'll now put this motion. All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. All those against? Councillor Farrell. Item 8.2.2, Windsor Carriby Shire Council submission to the New South Wales Legislative Council inquiry into data centres. Would I have a mover for this, please? Councillor Champion, a seconder. Councillor Russell, Councillor Champion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to thank the staff for a thoughtful piece of advocacy that clearly aligns with Council's strategic direction. New South Wales already hosts over 90 data centres, with many more planned. As demand grows, regional communities like ours will face increasing proposals, making it vital that we have a strong voice in how this sector develops. The submission recognises both the economic role of data centres and their significant resource demands. It outlines key impacts for regional areas like the Southern Highlands, including energy use, emissions, water security, land use, visual amenity and infrastructure capacity. Importantly, it calls for a coordinated whole-of-government approach so development doesn't outpace planning, energy, water and climate policy. While data centres are identified as a potential industry locally, any development must align with our emissions goals, protect water resources and respect community amenity. The submission proposes sensible safeguards, including emissions alignment, transparency, recycled water use and assessment of cumulative impacts. Ultimately, it asks the New South Wales Government to take a strategic integrated approach consistent with Council's existing policies. I strongly support making this submission so our community's voice is heard.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to this. Councillor Russell.
I have an amendment which I sent through to governance earlier.
Get that up on the screen. And we're probably going to bump into 8, so we'll finish off this item and then we'll reconvene at 9 a.m.
Oh, can we go past 8? Are we able to actually go past 8? No, so...
No.
Did I not say? So I have a... Maybe you want to send it. Sent. Okay, I'll find it in my drafts. I do have an amendment that I want to make on this. Do we have to go till 8 o'clock tonight, or may I propose we finish early because it's a significant amendment?
Just keep going till 8 and then we'll see where we land.
Well, I'll put a procedural motion that we finish the council meeting now.
Okay, your seconder, Councillor Moylan. All those in favour of finishing it now? Yep, carried unanimously. We'll reconvene at 9 a.m.